had one yet.
It's been a long time since we've had an LPA meeting.
Right.
I'm not even sure. Over a
Might
year.
be
I
the
think.
first one since they moved it from council back to us.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Hazard, I wasn't sure if we
Not
they blur together, to be honest, in some respects.
no, not since this committee was formed. Like I said, I don't think we've had an LPA meeting for over a year.
Okay. You ready, Mr.
Testing,
Ford?
testing.
All right, I guess I'm ready to call the local planning agency meeting of Lox Groves to order. Lakeisha, do you want to do roll or?
Yes, sir. Mr. Lip. Okay. Mr. Ford.
Present.
Mr. Otero.
Here.
Mr. Bell. Mr. O'Neill.
Here.
Ms. Gonzalez.
Here.
Mr. Tickham.
Here.
Mr. Fleshman.
Here.
And Ms. Birch. You have a quorum, sir.
Alrighty. Does anyone want to approve the agenda for tonight? All agree that we're on the same page.
Yep.
Since it's the first LPA meeting in quite some time. There are no previous minutes. There's no old business. We do have new business. Who would like to present? Jim?
Yep, I'll take care of that. Mr. Chairman, I'd
I'm
like
sorry,
to.
we
We need
did
to
have
approve first.
a motion to approve the
I'll
agenda.
make a motion to approve.
I second.
No one spoke up, so I just kind of moved forward.
Just because we're recording, can we just, Madam Clerk, just record the motioner and seconder? We just need to provide a little formality to this because of minutes and recording to the outside world. Motion by Mr. O'Neill, second by
Ms. Gonzalez.
Ms. Gonzalez.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay,
you.
as I stated, there's no previous minutes, there's no old business. We do have new business. I believe Mr. Fleischman's going to enlighten us.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, if it's okay, I'd like to take off the mask while I'm speaking. I'm pretty much blind without my glasses. My glasses get fogged.
I have the same problem. That's
And
why
I can't
mine's
read
down
it.
and
I'm sorry, before Mr.
far away.
Chair Ford, Vice Chair Ford, before Mr. Fleshman gets started, Mr. Lip did email me a form that he wanted me to pass out to you all, so.
Oh, okay. So did he mention he's coming or not?
He
coming?
didn't mention, he just asked that this be distributed tonight.
That probably is an indicator that he's not going to be here.
I don't know. He didn't, he just said, could you please make sure this is passed out tonight?
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we have one item on the agenda tonight, and that's a review of proposed comprehensive plan amendments that were funded by a grant from the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity. There are two documents that were included in your agenda package. One, the larger of the two documents is grant deliverable number 2, which was a requirement grant, and it provides all of the basic background information that we used, staff used to prepare the comprehensive plan amendments. And the second document, the smaller of the two, that's dated July 30th, 2020, is a brief staff report and also includes the proposed comprehensive plan amendments. When I refer to any of the documents, either of the documents tonight, I'm generally going to refer to pages in the smaller of the two documents, the staff report, unless there's any specific questions that you have that can be answered in the larger of the two documents, the deliverable 2 document. There are two basic components of the grant program. The first is a review and revision of the town's roadway classification system. And the second is a review and update of the term low impact non-residential land use and its application to future development in the town. As I said, the first grant component is an update to the town's roadway classification system. The current classification system in the comprehensive plan only classifies 3 roads: that Southern Boulevard as a principal arterial, Okeechobee as an urban collector, and Folsom Road as an urban local street. As a result of the research done as part of the grant program, 2 basic recommendations were generated in relation to the town's roadway classification system. The initial recommendation is to reclassify Okeechobee from urban collector to minor collector, and to designate it as a rural parkway, both of which are consistent with the character of the town. As I said, the Okeechobee Boulevard's current classification is urban collector. Minor collector is a term that's more consistent with the rural character of the town. So we're suggesting that reclassification be made. The second recommendation is to develop a classification system for town local roads. The basic task of developing this classification system was assigned to the town's roadway, equestrian trails, and greenways advisory committee. The proposed classification system identifies 5 service levels for local roads, and you can see those on page 9 of the staff report. See the 5 different service levels, and if you look at page 8 of the staff report, that is that's the assignment of the classification system to the roads of the town. Now, this map here doesn't clearly depict level 4 public access and level 5 private access roads, but the larger scale map that does identify those. And for anyone that's interested in getting a copy of that, I can have those made. The objective of the classification system is to aid staff and council in prioritizing road maintenance, repairs, and capital projects. Up to this point, the function and service level of the roads was not really considered when road improvements and repairs were made. This will help create a system where they can essentially systematically look at the different roads, classify priorities of roads, and assign and develop capital projects and repairs projects. The proposed related comprehensive plan amendments are presented on pages 7 through 9, 10, and 14. If you look at page 7, that's a revision of the transportation element map TRN 2.3. And if you look over in the colored section in the upper right-hand corner, we have changed the classification of Okeechobee from county urban collector to county minor collector. And then, as I said earlier, on page 8 is a map showing the proposed service level classification system for the town's local roads.
My pages are not, that's 8 and 9. Sorry, but I can't find the pages. You said 9 and 8. This is 29.
Well,
At the
30.
end.
well, no, it's in the smaller of the 2 reports. all of my references are,
Staff recommendation of the.
yeah.
and then the other
So it is different to what you give us. This is more pages. That's what I was wondering. Okay, got it. Now I know where we are. Thank you.
And then on page 9, it identifies in the left-hand column, the 5 service levels, and they were assigned essentially based on the function of the road. Service level 1 is provides public access from town properties to Okeechobee and Southern Boulevard. So you can see that's just a couple of the lettered roads. And service level 2 is public access from town properties to Okeechobee Boulevard or Southern Boulevard, not both. Service level 3 is public access between 2 or more service level 1 roads, roads that connect to 2 or more service level 1 roads. Service level 4 is our non-through public direct access to town properties. And service level 5 are non-through private direct access to town properties. And that's the basic classification system that we are proposing that the town adopt to help them establish priorities for improvements, repairs, and maintenance. And are there any questions on that to this point?
I do have a question, actually. When you're referring to change from urban collector to minor collector, you also mentioned rural parkway.
Mhm.
Okay. What is exactly the definition? Because for what I could research, rural parkway could be a huge highway going through this ranches, like huge properties. I mean, it is in the country, but it's a pretty big road.
Okay. If you go to the big report and go to page 6. And there's an entire section on page 6 that talks about rural parkways. Now, what we're talking about is essentially a 2-lane divided section with appropriately spaced left turn lanes.
Okay, I remember reading this. Okay, my question is, once we change it to rural parkway, I mean, is this what it's going to be, or could it change?
Well, I mean, it can always change,
Okay.
but what we're going to have be generated from this is the town's traffic consultant is going to come up with a couple alternative sections, rural parkway sections, which are going to be presented to the town council, and they would select the specific section that they want to use.
Okay. I also have another question. Why are you bringing this here, or who's instructing you to bring this here, or why are we going through this?
Because that's a requirement of the grant.
Or which grant?
The grant that we got to prepare this.
It's a state of Florida DEO grant for planning purposes. So there are certain deliverables and requirement in terms of process. The grant isn't dependent on the outcome or the approvals. It's dependent on the deliverables and the process in order to fulfill the funding.
And the other requirement is that if these are approved, these are comprehensive plan amendments, and by state law, comprehensive plan amendments have to be reviewed by the local planning agency.
I understand all that. What I'm trying to say is that we need to get all of this done in order to meet the requirements for that grant?
No,
Or
what the requirements of the grant take us all the way through the preparation of these documents and include public hearings by the local planning agency and by the town council.
Mhm.
If the town council decides that it does not want to adopt these, it doesn't have to.
Why are we even thinking about this plan, this specific plan? Because we already have a plan for roundabouts, right, and lights and certain other things and the trail rides on Okeechobee. Why are we adding all this? Is anybody with me here? Or-
Well, we already mentioned Rural Parkway to a certain extent in the comprehensive plan right now. This adds some detail to it, and makes the policy that we want to go to the county and have them designated a rural parkway in their comprehensive plan as well.
Okay, we have 5 levels here. Why don't we add Okeechobee to one of the other levels? I mean, it looks like level 1 and 2 are
Because
pretty much the same.
Okeechobee already has its classification of
But we're trying to change it, right?
from urban
Collector
to
minor
minor.
collector.
That's all we're doing.
And also, I would just mention the Okeechobee corridor is a county right away, so we can't change it for them. They have to work with us to change it, whatever that might be.
What would be the benefit for our town to change it?
It's a better reflection of the character of the town. An urban collector implies that it's passing through an urban area. The minor collector implies that it is passing through a more rural area.
I think what Ms. Gonzalez is asking is, what is the benefit to the town to make this change? I mean, it's somewhat obvious on its face that we're going from a larger roadway classification to a lesser roadway, but what is really the nitty gritty of what are we going to benefit by calling this the minor? Is it lack of development? Is there some, legal?
Well, I mean,
rationale?
it's been the town's policy forever to keep Okeechobee at two lanes.
I agree, and that's
Okay, and this is another tool in our toolbox to
maintain that goal.
Yes.
So is it more likely than not that if it stays without this change classification, that the county could come in and widen it and make it larger?
Well, they certainly can, because it's up to them in their five-year road improvement program to identify the improvements on their roads. They could do it, but in doing that, every year they have public hearings to update and or revise that 5-year plan 5 years into the future. And every tool that we have in our comprehensive plan to tell the county that we want to keep it at 2 lanes, we should use.
Okay, and is this in your opinion, the best tool that we have at the moment, or is there another classification, maybe even lower, that we could put in there?
Yeah, there is a lower classification. It's called rural collector. The reason I didn't put it in there is per federal funding requirements, a road that is designated rural collector is not eligible for federal monies.
Do we get any federal monies now?
Yeah, the 2 grants, one of the 2 grants that we got approved for is the roundabouts or the trail expansion. Part of that is federal money.
So we would, if we went lower, then we would possibly lose that funding.
Well, I don't know, but it's possible that we could even come off that funding list. I mean, that the funding list now just essentially says, okay, this is something that we are going to be funding sometime in the next 5 years. We don't have a specific date that those are going to occur.
Right, I didn't think we could.
Can I add to that? Maybe would be helpful. As Jim mentioned, the town applied for 2 funded grants. One is for the roundabout at Fresno and Okeechobee, and the other is for the trail project along the south corridor, south right away of Okeechobee, including crossing, cross sections and amenities. Both of those independent grants were picked up by the TPA, the Transportation Planning Authority, and they're in the queue over multiple years for commitments of matching dollars and design dollars and engineering and implementation. In addition to that, because those two projects fall in this right of way, we are in a kind of a forced partnership, if you will, with the county, because the county will ultimately be the LAP agency, which is a requirement under the development of such things, that has to manage and oversee the projects in conjunction with what we're having funded and done. A year ago or so going into this, there was clearly a difference of opinion, for, I guess is a polite way to put it, for what the county's future vision of that corridor was versus the town's. And there's an interlocal agreement that is being finalized and crafted that tries to bring those visions together for the purpose of facilitating these amenities and grant funding. And just as one other aside, there is additional conversation going on at a very informal level right now to talk with the county to see how we might collaborate and work with them to both achieve the design objectives of what we're talking about, as well as accommodate some of their needs and not have them ultimately be in an adversarial position where they're reluctantly working on the stuff that we're getting funded to do. So that's kind of the backdrop of where we are on this.
So currently there's nothing restricting the county from coming in and changing Okeechobee anyways. They're working with us currently. No
they're
matter
working
what
with us, but it
what
is
the definition is for Okeechobee, there's really nothing restricting them right now, correct?
one of the concerns that emerged out of that was the fact that, you know, our trail project, for example, has a multi-year shelf life of X, and because some positions in the county are to still look at a future expansion of that right-of-way, you know, their concern is, do you really want to build something we're going to come in and rip out in, you know, X number of years later because it's on our plan to do so. So, you know, there's that kind of timeline compatibility issue going on. We think it all drops into place and fits, but there's still moving parts on it, and we're still trying to negotiate the nuances of the interlocal agreement that facilitates the implementation of these projects and grants. So I guess to Jim's point, and kind of in context of what we're discussing or looking at, if we can get the county and the town to the same place where it's a win-win or works for both parties, we have a less likelihood of getting something we invest public dollars in getting drastically altered or ripped out prematurely in the future. You know, that's the motivation for finding a commonality here.
Is there a timeline in place?
There's a timeline associated with the TPA grants, which has to do with in FY21, for example, on the current tracking on the Trails project, there's a design matching fund that would have to be committed for that, and then subsequent years are engineering and infrastructure dollars. But the way it's structured, because the county is an LPA agency in charge of the overall management and implementation in their right-of-way, the commitments are made at the front end, and the county essentially reserves the right to overrule that decision sometime in the future if mitigating circumstances warranted that. You know, they're the bigger brother, if you will. They're higher up on the food chain. So yeah, so not opining on the details or the names or the, you know, the specifics of the proposal, but the exercise is to try to get to a place of compatibility and collaboration with the county in some way, shape, or form. And just one final comment, and then I'll be quiet, which is Jim's point is he put a lot of work into the nuts and bolts and parts and pieces of this, which are really requirements of the deliverables and the steps and the process and the nuances and the technicalities that need to go into it if it does move forward. However, there are multiple steps along the public process, if you will, for public hearings and feedback, and there is no requirement whatsoever for the legislative body of this town to adopt all those specific requirements or suggestions, but we are required to go through the process in order to get to the closing of the state-funded grant on this planning matter.
Mayor? Okay, that's talking about the other grants. That's one of my concerns, that if this plan for Okeechobee will jeopardize any of the other grants. 'Cause we
Absolutely not.
definitely don't want to do that.
Nope.
The other thing is that we're trying to lower the service level of the road, but on the other hand, we're also trying to put some commercial on it. So that's kind of like, to me, a contradiction. It also mentions in this agenda, on the paper where you gave us, again, we talked about this last meeting, change the comp plan to bring all the non-conforming businesses or illegal businesses in town so they can become compliant. Again, I don't understand why this is here again. I guess you printed it before the last meeting, but. And, and the last thing, the county has been working with us for several years now to keep it, small and rural, and to deviate the traffic through the other arteries like, Seminole, Pratt, Southern, and so on. They've been working with us, so I don't see why they would not keep on working with us. And so we can follow our comp plan and
Okay,
the
well,
plans for the town.
I would just say.
well, that's what this is suggesting that we continue to do, is continue to work with the county to try to preserve our rural character. Let me read you the definition of minor collector. That may help. Minor collectors provide traffic access and traffic circulation in lower density residential and commercial industrial areas. They may penetrate residential neighborhoods for only a short distance and also channel traffic from local streets to and from the arterial system. That's all we're saying. We're giving Okeechobee that classification.
So that includes commercial? It
The
says it there, right?
definition includes commercial,
definition,
but
okay.
that doesn't mean we have commercial here.
No, I understand that, but you're proposing commercial also on Okeechobee, right?
I'm proposing expanding the definition of low impact non-residential to include some commercial uses which were identified and generated in the visioning session, the workshop we had, and the online survey. It's not my ideas. These are coming out of all of the public participation programs that we've had for the last 9 months. Any other questions?
All right, Jim, this seems like a lot of them, it's sort of a multifaceted. Again, we do not have to adapt everything all at once. We have the ability to analyze each individual part of this and give our recommendations, because again, we are a local planning agency and we're just giving our recommendations to council. Ultimately, council is going to be the one to say yay or nay, but historically they do seem to follow in line with the lower committees.
Yeah, and because of the fact of the COVID, and we really have not had much of an opportunity to get much public input into these documents. We had a lot of public input into creating these documents, but not a lot of comment on the documents that themselves. If the council approves on first reading the comp plan amendments at their meeting on Monday, we have to send it up to the state, and there's a 30-day review by the state and other agencies, and then it comes back, and then we have 6 months from the time we get it back from the state to consider and potentially adopt second reading. During that time, we can make changes to these comp plan amendments. So there will be additional opportunities to take a look at these over probably the rest of this calendar year. If the LPA wants to take some additional time, we would like to get a recommendation at this point, if possible. And if there are any changes that you want to make, by all means, make your recommendation conditioned upon the proposed changes. But we will have additional time opportunities to comment on this in the future if you so desire.
I'm sorry, I have one more question. That's
Mhm.
okay. You said that it needs to go through this committee before it goes onto the council? But my understanding is that you presented this to the council first and then they sent it here. No?
No.
Wrong
These
information
same
then.
items, I believe, are on next Tuesday night's agenda as a council
Okay,
item.
maybe I got the wrong information then.
Okay, so Jim, if I'm understanding what's before us, we really sort of have three subparts to address today. The map amendments, Okeechobee Boulevard text amendments, and the Southern Boulevard text amendments. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's true. If you look at the staff report.
Right, that's what I'm looking at.
Yeah.
Usually where I get most of my information.
Then pages 6 through 14 are the proposed comprehensive plan amendments. There's a couple maps, and there's some additions and revisions to the future land use element text, and one addition to the transportation element text.
Okay, so what are you proposing exactly are the text amendments for Okeechobee Boulevard? I think Ms. Gonzalez has sort of hinted at it, that it appears that you want to expand the commercial aspect of Okeechobee Boulevard. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. First of all, if you can take a look at page 6, we're proposing that an overlay land use category be created on Okeechobee Boulevard. And that overlay essentially encompasses one lot deep on the north side of Okeechobee and the south side of Okeechobee. It's represented by the crosshatched, which we need to darken that up a little bit so it's a little more
Rural
clear.
residential.
The email was not very.
Yeah. So
And when you say one lot deep.
Yeah.
Lots aren't cookie cutters. I mean, it looks like a lot of them are pretty close, but then there's some that, that go pretty deep.
Well, almost all of those lots are at least 5 acres, or if you add the right of way that's been given up from the Okeechobee right of way, they are 5 acres.
Okay, and presently these are all AR5, right?
That's right.
And when you say overlay, you're not changing the zoning.
That's true.
You are creating sort of a hybrid.
Yes,
What I
that's
was
exactly
reading, it's still an R5 basically, but not a residential. Is a minimum of 5 acre lot to be developed.
Yeah, that's right. It's expanding the uses that can occur on these properties, while at the same time maintaining the AR zoning district and the RR5 future land use category.
I think having a more detailed explanation of what you're going to expand, so we are clear on what you're asking of us.
Okay, well, let's see here.
I believe it's on 2 through 3 of your report, but
Yeah. Well, I guess the best way to look at that is to look at starting on page 10 of the staff report. Those are the proposed comprehensive plan amendments.
okay.
From 10 to 14, and we can go through the individual policy recommendations, but what I'd like to go through like a brief summary of
Sure.
of an abbreviated version, I guess, of what what's being proposed. We have in order to qualify for the uses that we're proposing under this overlay district, you have to be a minimum of 5 acres. Now, under our current zoning district, districts, the CL commercial low district, the minimum lot size is 1 acre. And that's the primary reason why I did not want to get into assigning a commercial district to Okeechobee Boulevard, because if that would essentially mean that each of these 5-acre parcels could create 1 acre parcels and put up individual commercial uses on each acre. So that we don't want to do. So we want to maintain a low intensity, and we're starting with that, but by saying that the lot size, in order to qualify in this overlay, has to be 5 acres. Okay, and we're actually lowering the floor area, maximum floor area ratio of the agricultural residential district, which right now is 0.15, 15% of an agricultural property can be developed for structures. We're saying, okay, we're going to allow some additional uses, but we want to keep the intensity very low. So we're recommending that the maximum floor area ratio is only 1/10 of the size of the property.
Except for self-storage facilities?
So self-storage is not included in this area. Self-storage it is only allowed in the CL district on Southern Boulevard. Okay. So on a 5-acre parcel, the maximum size of the development under this scenario is right around 22,000 square feet, which is essentially not very intense, and that's the maximum. And we're also recommending that a consistent architectural theme be developed by the town council. Now, the LPA back in 2015 made an attempt to come up with a consistent agricultural theme for Okeechobee Boulevard. Now, I didn't include it as part of this, but I did set the stage for where we can do something like this. And any of you that would like to see what they came up with, I can get copies to you. And I think this would set the stage for a very rural, consistent architectural character on Okeechobee.
Let me just jump in for 1 second. So you're saying that basically the overlay is 5 acres, and that's the minimum.
Right.
What's there to prevent somebody from buying up a couple hundred acres along Okeechobee and then using that 1/10 scenario to build, big box store or something like that?
Well, big box.
What if someone has 10,000 or 10 acres, then they want to put a 44,000 square foot building on it?
They could under this. I mean, if we want to set a maximum size, we can. We can add or subtract or change the way these are worded. If you
Jim,
think that,
would that require a unity of title to combine those lots to get to that kind of calculation?
not necessarily, they could do a lot combination and just have the property appraiser assign one parcel control number to a properties that currently have 2. So, but when they come in for a site plan, they would be restricted to that site plan. So in effect, a unity of use, if you will, is being created by the site plan. So we got minimum lot size 5 acres, maximum intensity of development is 0.1, 10% of the area of the parcel. Recommend a consistent architectural theme, which we have a potential example here. And we also created 6 general use categories, which I think is the meat of the matter, which we probably are going to spend a little bit of time on. The first category is any use that's currently allowed in the town's AR zoning district, which pretty simple. And then the second category is uses that were previously allowed by Palm Beach County in the AR district prior to the time of incorporation of the town. Now, for those of you that have attended a good number of council meetings, if generally speaking on issues or requirements that the town doesn't have any, the town always wants to see how Palm Beach County did it. So what I did was I went back to what the AR district was in 2006 under Palm Beach County and identified a couple of uses that were permitted as conditional uses back at that time. And those are bed and breakfast, landscape service, medical or dental office. Now that's one that I assume that there may be some discussion about. Farmers market and farrier. So those are specific uses that were previously permitted by Palm Beach County on Okeechobee Boulevard prior to incorporation. And then the next category is what I call cottage businesses. Under the town's current land development code, we allow home office uses and residential enterprise uses. And I'm combining them under one umbrella category called cottage businesses. And those are essentially small businesses where there is a resident of the property that either has a business inside his house or outside of his house. The home office is a business in the house. Residential enterprise allows a business to be undertaken in a separate structure on the property. Now, those two uses have been in the town's code ever since inception, but we have not had one application for either of those uses since the town was incorporated. And I think that the reason for that is the fact that the requirements for home office and residential enterprise are too restrictive. And what I'm thinking is that the town council ought to take a new look at those two businesses and loosen them up a little bit, only for businesses in the overlay zone, and maybe even get to the point where we identify the types of uses that could qualify under specifically residential enterprise, and then set up a special exception where the applicant could come in and make his case, for example, for the number of employees and in the number of customers that could visit the site.
So this home office and residential.
Sorry, if we can just kind of
Sorry,
get my attention.
I was.
Were you- Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I was
Okay,
looking
first
down.
of all, I have to disagree about you saying that we're always looking back to the county. Because the reason for incorporation, again, was so we could have our own rules.
Sure.
We try not to copy the county. We need to see what our needs are. So, and what we want of this town.
Well,
The second comment I have here is like the uses for Okeechobee Boulevard, the yes responses of the surveys you did, I guess,
Mhm.
of the meetings. It says park public events. We can already have that without making any changes. Botanical gardens, we can have that without making any changes. Agri-ecotourism, we can do that without making any changes.
No,
Farmers,
not the way I'm recommending here.
I know. But what I'm
I'm
saying,
not sure you do. Let me, but go ahead.
no, go ahead.
Right now, agritourism can only be an accessory use on a property that has an agricultural use code by Palm Beach County property appraiser. It can only be an accessory use on an agricultural property. What I'm suggesting here is that we allow agricultural tourism businesses to become the principal use and not necessarily have to be tied to an agricultural property.
So that would be commercial, not agriculture.
We would define, it would be a commercial business, but we would define a list of uses that are agricultural tourism related, but not have them be restricted to the bona fide ag properties, because most of the bona fide ag properties are obviously off of Okeechobee and not visible, and they're hard to market. If we allow them as principal uses on Okeechobee, in my mind, that they would have a better opportunity to be successful.
Yeah, I got a quick question here. The home office, is our nurseries and equestrians included in that already? As far as, because I mean, those are all businesses with home offices and people coming in and out, employees in and out. Would that be considered a cottage business?
No.
Or is that excluded in its own?
Yeah. A home office business would be, for example, I'm a city planning consultant, and I want to operate that business out of my house. Okay, that would be a home office use. A residential enterprise would be if I'm a sculptor and I want to have another structure on the property where I make, market, and sell my sculptures. It's small businesses that are owned and operated by the resident of the property.
How do we determine foot traffic for that?
Well, right now, we have very specific requirements, like the home office can't have any customers, and can only have one employee outside of the family.
So that's what I'm asking is, so like, I know there's some farms around here that have traffic going in and out all day long with horses. What's the difference between that and a sculptor having cars going in and out?
Yeah.
Yeah, one
Yeah,
is an
yeah,
ag
yeah.
business.
So we
and
keep
the
it
other
as
one
an
is
ag.
If it's bona fide agriculture, you can do that.
Okay.
And the agritourism is an accessory use that you can have on a bona fide ag property.
Again, my question, why do we want to bring other businesses to the town that are not agriculture? And how is this going to benefit the town?
Well, the majority of people that participated in the visioning session, in the workshop, in the online survey, voted to have these businesses come into town.
How many people were that? 29?
No, there was 80 people that responded to the online survey.
I never got it personally.
Well, the way the town distributed the survey was, I guess that they have a list of 400 names that have signed up to get copies of what's going on in the town, I guess, and those people were all notified. So 20% of those responded, and then of course the at the visioning session, I can't remember how many people we had at that, but it was a couple hundred.
Over 200.
So it's not like,
I'm sorry, but about that, I understand that there was over 200 maybe people, but not everybody was from this town. There was a lot of people from out of town, correct?
I didn't look at the sign-in sheets.
Okay. it just happened before here, you know, we filled this room once before when we were talking about the college, and most people were from Royal Palm, Wellington, not people from here. That's why I'm asking. We need to get the input from the people here
Well,
in this town.
Well, technically, this meeting was,
Yeah.
notified and the public had an opportunity to come submit questions.
I understand, but I'm talking that there's a lot of people that were not residents that show up. That's what I'm talking about.
Right, but we're here now and we're the
Mhm.
local planning. Jim, what you're proposing, I could see some people might think, that's not a bad thing. But you're proposing that it's only an overlay along Okeechobee, so anybody else that wants to do a home business or something like that is prevented currently, if I'm understanding what you just told us, from doing basically, I think there was a sculpture, example.
yeah, well, they aren't prevented. Right now, home office and residential enterprise.
Jim, excuse me if I can just jump in to reflect the record that Dennis Lip, committee chair, has arrived at the meeting.
Staff report 910, going over the policy.
I apologize for getting you late. I thought it was
That's okay.
6:30,
Yeah, home office and residential enterprise right now is a permitted use subject to certain requirements anywhere in the AR district. And that still would be the case. What I'm suggesting is that the requirements primarily in terms of employees and customers be loosened up a little bit for those kinds of businesses on Okeechobee, because the workers and the customers don't have to travel on the interior roads and create traffic situations. Plus the fact that right now, particularly under the residential enterprise, we just say residential enterprise. We have no
Definition.
specificity in what those businesses can be.
Right.
And I think really we need to take a look at those two categories throughout the entire town.
Well, that's kind of was my point, is
Yeah.
that we're making a special exception for Okeechobee Boulevard, which I know throughout the history, there's been back and forth as to different camps wanting different things on Okeechobee.
Yeah.
I think the one thing that the majority of the town can agree with is that under no circumstances do we want it to turn into the fiasco that Southern's turned into. So I think that's one thing that we all want to be very, very cautious about moving forward on Okeechobee.
Yeah. Well, I think number one part of the fiasco on Southern Boulevard is the fact that particularly east of C, pretty much all the way over to the town hall here, those lots are very small, and it's possible for multiple businesses to come in and get projects approved on parcels that are less than 2 acres in size. So I mean, the potential for and I hate to say this, for a military trail type situation does exist on Southern, with the criteria that we have here for Southern Boulevard. That can't happen.
You mean for Okeechobee?
For Okeechobee, I mean.
Yeah, for
Right,
Okeechobee,
but the way it stands right now, it's a minimum of 5, but there's no maximum.
Which
So
I said, if you have any thoughts along those lines, I'll be more than happy to pass that on.
If I could just butt in here for a second, Jim. I heard you say that there was no definition of residential enterprise.
There's no listing of the types of uses that you can have as residential enterprise businesses. I mean, right now you could have a construction company.
As I recall, the only definition I remember was that no more than 2 outside employees
Well,
and no foot traffic.
it has criteria but it doesn't list the types of businesses that you can have. That's wide open. And as far as I know, I think that we should take a look at that to identify, particularly in the areas that are back in the interior areas of town. What kinds of businesses do we want to allow back in there?
The point has come up is that a piano teacher, a tutor, other, low impact
Yeah,
things,
sure.
and an accounting firm. I know on, what is it? South B, there's right there on Los Angeles and South B, there's an attorney's office. And certainly, those, so, I mean, when you go in and you read the approved uses for commercial law and commercial law office in Palm Beach County's uses, I mean, it's all the way from a sewing shop to a strip club. It's a very wide range.
Well, yeah, no, we're not talking about uses in the commercial district. We're talking about the
Yeah, I
home
know.
office and residential enterprise. And I mean, it's, I personally think that we need to have some more definition of the types of businesses that would qualify for those uses, particularly in the off Okeechobee, off Southern properties.
Yeah. I think I said the 3 or 4, but I'm sure other people have ideas
Yeah.
what that would
Right.
be.
Sure.
So Taze, do you have anything along that lines that you could add to that?
No, not sure. To be honest with you, I was like, I'm looking for something that I thought I saw that I can't see it anymore. The only thing here that I'm a little bit, so rural parkway and minor collector means the same thing?
No.
No. Okay.
Rural Parkway would have its own specific cross section, and we do have on page 10 of the staff report,
Mhm,
policy 1.1A1.
Rural parkway.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it says in order to maintain the 2-lane section, the town will support implementation of the following Okeechobee Boulevard improvements. A, coordinate with Palm Beach County to designate the section of Okeechobee Boulevard within Loxahatchee Groves, a rural parkway, specifically expansion to a 2-lane divided median enhanced rural parkway with properly spaced left turn lanes. Now, the cross section that the town selects would need more detail than that, but that's where we ask the town's traffic engineer to come up with a couple of examples, and we can get that specific in terms of identifying a cross section that we want to see. And that cross section, we can promote that cross section every time Palm Beach County is looking at making improvements on Okeechobee.
I'm not following what you mean by promoting a cross-section or really understanding the cross-section. As far as this goes, when you say left turn lane, what does that mean? Something like rural Palm Beach Boulevard where there's a left turn lane down the center the
Yeah.
whole way? Or
Yes.
is this specific, C road, B road, A road get left turn lanes?
Well, that's to be determined where those left turn lanes go, whether or not they're at every letter road or alternate letter roads. That's not specifically defined in this policy. That's where the traffic engineering cross section would define those that the council approves.
But it sounds like the plan is to widen Okeechobee in order to create, albeit a 3rd lane, a left turning lane in the center of the 2-lane parkway.
Well, all of that can be done within the existing right of way of Okeechobee. That I did check out with our town's engineer.
When you say the existing right of way, you're probably referring to the south side of the road where
I'm-
there's more grass before the canal goes?
I'm talking about 100 feet.
Yeah, that's not paved presently.
Well, the paved is within that.
Yeah, Mr. Ford, the county owns from the south side of the canal to the property lines on the north side of the road, inclusive of
Right.
the grassed areas and the
And that's
drainage
what I'm saying.
canal, et
That-
cetera.
I realize that's theirs, but so the grassy area is not paved yet, but when this project gets done, that they'll be utilizing more of.
There'll
their
be
right of
additional
way.
paving.
Yeah, yes, I'm not sure exactly how it would be done. Now, the traffic engineer tells me that they can do this parkway as described here, including the equestrian trail within the 100-foot easement that is already there.
But that would include more paving to widen the road. Or would there be? would
They can't
use
do it within the
additional?
physical pavement.
Yeah,
that
no,
they
they
have.
can't.
Yeah, they'd have to put,
Right.
Would have to.
yeah, yeah, they
That was
want,
the crux of my
yeah,
question.
oh, okay, okay. they-
Sorry,
yeah.
I still have, I mean, okay, there's three terms here that you're using: rural collector, minor collector, and rural parkway. And we're trying to go for the rural parkway, for what I'm understanding.
The classification of the road based in our comprehensive plan will be minor collector. Okay. Under the umbrella definition of minor collector, this says that we want to design a rural parkway.
So you can have both, is what he's saying, but
Yeah. Yeah.
we're reducing what we're calling the road. I'm not sure how to phrase it properly, but
Yeah.
but basically we're going down a step, and there's another step below that you said would lose federal funding for
Right.
projects if we went that far down.
Right, right. And rural parkway is already referenced in our comprehensive plan right now. So we're not making any major, the only addition that we're making on page 10 here is that we're emphasizing coordination with Palm Beach County.
Mhm.
Which, certainly makes sense. I see no issue with that.
So policy 1.1A.1 has nothing to do with the overlay, the commercial or anything like that. Correct?
No.
Why don't we?
There's a
pull this
lot
thing-
on this agenda, no?
Do the
Yeah, why don't we
first.
pull this apart and sort of, and it's your back, but, should
Yep.
we discuss take these things piecemeal and see what we can get accomplished?
Without
Move on.
objection, we can, let,
You've been really quiet.
I know.
I'm thinking, I'm just.
Jim, I got a question real quick.
Sure.
Which amendment is for Okeechobee and the hashed marks on the map to make that into commercial
Okay,
use? Which one is that?
if you look at page 10,
Okay.
objective 1.16.
Okay.
That's a brand new objective that deals exclusively with the overlay. Objective 1.16 and the policies underneath that.
What about setbacks and those types of things? I know you said 10%, we're lowering it to 10%. But what if somebody does a 22,000 square foot building and they do asphalt for the rest of the 5 acres?
Well,
Like, what restricts them from doing something like that?
well, we also have requirements for pervious and impervious area. And I believe that the maximum impervious area is 20 or 25%.
Is that on here?
No, that's already in the code.
That's in the code, okay.
Yeah.
And then what about the setbacks for the neighbors behind these properties? Is there the same as what's going on with Southern? Where there's a buffer?
The setbacks are right now in the AR district, which is anything that's not specifically referred to in these amendments, we would refer back to the zoning district, okay? And the setbacks were just reduced by the council last year, and they're really pretty pretty short, if you will.
But that would be for
Now that's,
AR. That's not for low impact. So I think
Well,
we have to look at
well,
what
ye-
low impact would be.
yeah, you're right. You're right. We can, that's something that I know the council is interested in having large setbacks, both on the front and the rear of the property. Those are things that we can either add in here, or there are going to have to be some amendments to our code to implement this stuff. Okay.
Mhm.
And so extensive setbacks both on the front and the rear essentially is something that's going to happen because the front setbacks now are 50 feet and the rear is 25, and that's
Short.
on Okeechobee. That's really unacceptable.
Yeah.
Jim, would you, s-
Go ahead, please. You haven't.
Jim, would you say that the creation for the overlay, should we more put the setbacks into the comp plan overlay creation, or do you think it would be better a fit for the ULDC? Is that something that we can do, or is that something that would be better?
Well, you certainly can. You certainly can make a recommendation now to include it in here. We didn't with the exception of the floor area ratio, which has to be in the comprehensive plan. We didn't really get into development standards in these comp plan amendments. So I would think that probably the appropriate place would be in the LDRs that in the code for those. Because we are going to have some code provisions to implement this. If you have recommendations, I would love to pass them on to the council right now, even if we don't include it in here.
So when we're voting on this, these are not all the codes that go along with this. We have
Oh,
to
no,
bring
no.
in codes for the
Yeah.
setbacks,
Yeah,
for
yeah.
instance, noise,
Yeah,
for
yeah,
instance,
sure.
maybe the parking lot
Yeah,
issue.
Yeah, that's right. Now, the AR district already has criteria for those in it. Now,
The AR,
yes.
but this is an AR.
Yeah, well, yeah.
It's staying AR.
Yeah, the underlying zoning district is going to stay AR.
But what is low impact?
The-
You're calling it
this-
low impact also.
Well, this is a land use category that lies, every property has a land use category and a zoning district.
Mhm.
We're saying this should be the land use category. The AR zoning district stays such that any specific regulations that we come up with apply here, but if it's a standard that we don't address, we refer back to the AR district. You follow that?
I do, but I like, you say like a farm to table or a shop breakfast, coffee shop breakfast. I mean, that's not AR.
No, it's not. They can be a permitted use in the overlay. Even though the rest of the AR district throughout the town, you can't do it.
Okay. Page 12, which is after 11, doesn't have the number on the bottom, but it's attachment D2. It says here, commercial low, it says from 1.10 to increase it, not decrease it. Why is this here?
Yeah, well, a commercial load district only applies to Southern Boulevard. And there is, there's been a lot of discussion about increasing the floor area ratio on Southern Boulevard.
Okay, so this has no relation here with Okeechobee Boulevard.
That's
because
true.
it's-
That's
huh?
true.
I think this
Okay,
package
why is it here?
addresses both corridors in different places, correct, Jim?
Well, yeah, it does, but that increase in the FAR only applies to Southern.
Because Southern is the only commercial low.
Yes. We have, in our zoning code right now, the CL zoning district is limited to properties that have frontage on Southern.
Mhm. Okay, so the overlay will not include commercial low uses?
No.
No.
Just, that's why I got into specifics. specific uses that are permitted in the overlay.
That's why I was making a recommendation that we kind of address this in more of a piecemeal,
Yeah.
because things are being brought forward for discussion
Mhm.
that are perfectly legitimate to be discussed. It's just that let's kind of go down the list of, tackle it so that we can, yep, Jamie.
Where do we start then?
I just wanted to add a few comments, if I may, that might be helpful based on casual conversations that are occurring behind the scenes in terms of this idea of an overlay. And first and foremost, for the Okeechobee corridor in particular, I'll take this off for talking and probably hear me better if I'm not muffled. It was clear to us, for example, when we were negotiating with the county on the TPA projects, that they have no interest in acquiring additional right-of-way because that's very expensive and time-consuming and obstructive to them. So that is kind of a given there. They've got that footprint that they're working within. So as we've talked about the concepts of an overlay, the purpose of having an overlay is to create a set of permissive or restrictive rules on top of what's already there that the town determines versus somebody else determining or being forced upon us or thrust upon us by default or litigation or any other reason. In the ongoing casual conversations between the town and some of the other entities like the county and the TPA and various players involved with this, there has been conversation about the concepts of building into these overlays, preservation overlays or conservation overlays to create those additional buffers that I think I've heard many of you reference in terms of making sure that, for example, equestrian trails, maybe they're on the outsides, like if you think of an overlay district that is bracketed or belted in by conservation trails or easements, much like we have as a requirement along Southern on the north sides of some of those properties. We're making every one of those commercial properties offer up a conservation strip for the purpose of both natural conservation as well as equestrian ways, et cetera. And those are kind of built into the premise of them incentivizing some of the things they're getting on the front end of the property. So just, food for thought, because it's not reflected in some of the detailed nuance of these comp plan amendments. These could be recommendations that both the LPA makes and of course the council adopts and or ultimate negotiating points with the county and other agencies that if we are going to allow certain things along this permissive overlay, in exchange for that, the town expects some of these added protections, added setbacks, equestrian features, things like that can become part of that narrative in the future as we move down the track. And again, I know Dennis wasn't here on the first part of our discussions tonight, but however you approve this or not, with whatever recommendations, there's still months and multiple public meetings that would go into those kinds of issues and nuances to approve or deny or modify those potential incentivizations that might become part of this. So I don't know if that's helpful or hurtful because it's not what you're looking at specifically, but it is in the conversation stage in terms of coming up with what I said earlier, where there are certain parties in the town that think it would be beneficial to collaborate with those other agencies to make the best win-win outcome that both protects what the town wants, but yet facilitates, whatever needs to happen to make it happen.
Okay,
How is this going to make the county, I'm sorry, I'm missing a piece of the puzzle, I guess.
Mhm.
Because how is this plan for Okeechobee going to make the county happy, so to speak?
It's imperative that you remember that this corridor is a county-owned right-of-way.
There
They
you are.
ultimately have control over its future unless we have adopted process-driven rules in place that the other agencies agree to and we can implement and have jurisdiction in. And we can't mandate that on the county or the state, but we can get to a place where maybe they agree with our vision of Okeechobee versus some of the visions that have historically been out there in the county. And I assure you, at the county level, there are still mindsets in many camps that's 4-lane straight DOT regulation, push it all back, get us from that end to that end, no stopping. That exists, and that's a reality. So these comments are in context of that. How do we get away from that, being humored and defaulting to that down the road?
We don't
by-
offer something, then they're going to offer what they want.
Well, they have their future visions in terms of their long-range transportation plans for the county based on traffic numbers and development rights and all the things that they've done for years all over the county. And that stuff's embedded in a lot of the historical data and projections and imagery. And we're trying to essentially circumnavigate that or get to a better place that doesn't look like just a big built-out grid. And part of your comments earlier, that was part of the main purpose of incorporating, was to create that jurisdiction where we have a little more say in the footprint than just, a well that runs through, have a nice day. So my comments were intended to reflect that there are different ways to get there, and there may be ways to, accomplish multiple goals and enhance or incentivize behaviors that we want to see versus just having a default to things that we don't want to see. And the other issue that and then I promise I'll be quiet, is that if you drive down Okeechobee today, I mean, there is a hodgepodge of historical and grandfathered and questionable interpretations of uses all over the map, no pun intended. And so part of this entire exercise is to try to rein that in and get it to a palatable set of rules that everybody likes and reflects the interests of the town and is still fundamentally and intergovernmentally palatable with the other agencies that have say in this process. You remember I mentioned earlier, the county is ironically our lead agency on the
Older brother,
projects
isn't
and the
it?
grants that we already have in. So it's kind of a shotgun marriage, if you will. And I don't mean that in a negative way, but we have to work with them and they have to work with us. And the more that it's collaborative and palatable to all the parties, the easier it is to get it done at the end of the day. And then some of that might involve incentivization of the property owners along that corridor to get things that you might want that are enhancements that are aesthetically that increase the aesthetic of the corridor and other things, through creating this set of rules that works for everybody. I'm talking, obviously more philosophical than nuanced, detail oriented. And Jim's job, by contrast, is to put those technical nuances into these narratives that will amend into our comp plan. But
By approving these amendments, we're going to bring more traffic to Okeechobee Boulevard, and we've been fighting traffic so we can deviate the traffic to other big roads. As long as the county can see that there's not much people that want to go through our town, they may think about other plans.
I'm only afraid that horse has already left the barn, so to speak, that the county's numbers and projections were long well established before we even had this conversation. And so part of this exercise is projecting a town outcome desired, as well as trying to thwart some of those presumptions and assumptions that were just a westward gateway to Arden and Westlake and everything else west, that is springing up around us. So, I don't think the county has been waiting for us to come up with these ideas to make their future determinations. They have a very clear vision of what this looks like in the big picture, and we're trying to thwart that vision in a positive way that looks good for the town.
I feel a little bit threatened here. I mean, what you're saying is that if we don't do anything, they still have their plan for 4 lanes. And doing this doesn't even assure us that they won't do it.
Just to
So-
clarify, they have a long-range plan for 4 lanes that is at least a minimum of 6, 7, 8 years out, because it required to even get there, they have to put it on a 5-year plan, which it's not there yet. And so that was part of the early comments I made, where when we were negotiating with the county for the trail funded grant that's along Okeechobee, that was actually one of their express concerns. Well, why would you want to build a trail here that's going to get ripped out in 7 or 8 years? You know, because we're coming through then, or sooner or later.
So if something like that is already in place, it may deter a 4-lane road. If
Well,
they say,
that-
okay, we
that-
got a grant from the state.
that-
All right, this is already in place. We paid for this. Technically, the state paid for it.
No, the grant
they-
really pays for us to have this formal conversation and go through this process. It really isn't intended to determine what the rules are, what the outcome is. It's to go through the process of having the conversation and getting all the parts and pieces reviewed, vetted, and put into the comp plan if that's the way the town chooses to go. Again, the county's visions and presence are supersedes the town. You know, their models were done before we even became a town practically, and that's one of the reasons we became a town. And again, the underscore here is if we don't set the rules, somebody else might try to set them for us. So that's the ultimate desire is
Maybe, I don't know, maybe somebody can help me here because I'm.
I think we should go through the amendments one by one and
You know, I just want to give you a little glimpse. I sat on the county's planning board for a number of years.
So it's all your fault.
Wish. And when the subject of Calorie Judge came up, and the planning board voted unanimously 15-0 not to allow Calorie Judge go ahead, Nat Roberts, go ahead with their plans. And the Board of County Commissioners voted for it, 6-7. I mean, 6-1. And I asked Barbara, I forget her name right now, who was the director back then. I said,
Alterman.
yeah, Barbara Alderman. I said, why does this go through? He says, you got to remember, you see all those people sitting out there, like 20 people? This has been their vision for Calorie Judge Groves for the past umpteen years. And they have it in their mind what's going to be there. And so anything that little old Loxahatchee Groves or even somebody of 15 appointed members from the board voted against it. But, no, this has been on the books for umpteen years, and Nat Roberts has already given a lot of us money for our campaigns. And so, we got to be beholden to some degree or another. But that's what we're up against here. So the vision that we had, part of the vision of becoming a town, was to become a frigging town, have our own comp plan, which is reviewed by several agencies around the state. Since Rick Scott gutted the division of, what is it?
DCA. It was the Department of
DCA,
Community.
Department of Community Affairs. So there's still a Department of Community Affairs, but they could come in and say, no, you're not going to do that. And they had the rule. But because of their rules, the growth that the people wanted to see were stifled. And so Rick Scott, as a businessman, just say, well, we're going to cut the horns off of DCA, and this is how it goes now. And so that's why when things come through, we are our own best defense. About putting something in the comp plan, Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council will put their approval on it, as well as other state agencies, and it gets passed. And so that's why having it in the comp plan makes it something that we can go in and say, well, this is against what we put in the comp plan. This was reviewed by XYZ state agencies. And how can you come in here now and override what the state agencies have already said that that's a good idea? So,
But the county can still come after and say, too bad.
well, the thing is,
That's what it sounds like to me right now.
One of the things that we were fighting tooth and nail on was the 140th E Road thoroughfare, which was to be a 4-lane paved road from the acreage down E Road and then catty corner over to hook up with F Road. And that would have wiped out hundreds of people's lives, their farms, their houses. And one of those guys was Bill Lauda. And we all know Bill, and you don't want to, it's good to have Bill on your side, but when he's against you, he's against you.
I've been on both sides of them.
And so, so we got that taken off the road. And then reading through the transcripts here, I guess that's in somebody's mind to put E Road 140th thoroughfare back on the map sometime, because Okeechobee back then was supposed to go through to Southern Boulevard out by Lion Country Safari.
I know, I understand.
I mean
I'm sorry.
Okeechobee Boulevard to Southern Boulevard.
No, I understand. I'm familiar with all this. What I'm not understanding, why this plan? Why this plan? How is the, I mean, we can have any plans, right? As long as we have a plan, basically the county would work with us. Again, why is this plan?
This isn't, in spite of my comments about trying to collaborate or have good outcomes for both entities, the county is not in control of what's in our comp plan. And to Jim's point, the stuff that he's recommending in the comp plan is the narration of what emerged out of several meetings, surveys, public processes that where people identified things they were interested in, and then he has scripted that into comp plan amendments that would purportedly support those or enable those things if they were approved and move forward.
The other thing I heard with our recommendation, our vote, we could put requests onto this.
Yeah, sure. sure.
Caveats and conditions and requests, sure.
So Bill, do you have an idea? How are we going to dissect this right now? Like,
Well, let me make a suggestion, if that's okay. We have essentially two parts to these comp plan amendments. One are transportation related, and one is the essentially Okeechobee overlay related. And I suggest that we look at the transportation pages. We've got all the amendments on pages 6 through 14. If we look at the pages that are related to the transportation element, which are essentially the two maps on pages 7 and 8, the local road functional classification system table on page 9, which we're suggesting be incorporated into the transportation element of the comprehensive plan. And then over on page 14, we're proposing that a policy 2.2.5 be added. Now, if we can agree or disagree or make revisions to those pages, then we will have come up with a consensus on the transportation related amendments.
So as far as these maps go, I've heard talk that the town was adopting some maps that may not be accurate. Somebody want to clarify that for me? I wasn't up on the.
There's an agenda item on Tuesday night's council meeting, which is a revisit of an agenda item that was on last month, which is a scope of work for the town engineers to revisit what's called the maintenance maps and identify, and the maintenance maps are a series of maps done in phases over many years that attempt to survey the footprints of the public footprint of the town. In other words, the lettered roads, the side roads, the easements, the canals, et cetera, and determine the ultimate purpose of the project is to determine where the public footprint is and where the private property is.
Right, and what we're considering here has nothing to do with that.
That's true.
None of it.
That's true.
And contrary to popular belief, that it's not to determine whether to take more land or get more land or buy more land or whatever. It's to determine where that line is
Yeah, it's
that
not
everybody
what
can
the
agree.
surveying is
So that
here.
there's a public side and a private side. Because
What we're doing here doesn't affect any of that.
I don't believe any of Jim's work on this matter is related to that item
Okay, then
whatsoever.
let me just jump to the one thing that I've always wondered about, and I see your note here, the portion of 40th Street North located north of North Road is for berm maintenance, access, and is not a roadway.
sorry, what page?
8, sorry. It's in the attachment C1 proposed map. What's the story with that? Because Dennis just brought up the whole notion that there's 140th is right on the other side of E Road right there. And there has been talk on and off for the last couple decades that I've lived here of basically connecting Southern Boulevard, Okeechobee, and the acreage all through this thoroughfare.
Well, that's no longer on the county's thoroughfare map. It was at one point, as Dennis mentioned. But
Okay,
it's
so
not now.
how does this, adopting or rejecting the proposal here, how does this affect that cut through?
I would, well, the only thing that I don't think that it directly affects it, other than the fact that we're classifying the town's local roads, and we can say that that type of an extension does not match with our classification system.
Well, I think there on your policy 2.2.5, it says it right there in the first line.
Yes.
The following shall be town policies. One, permanent removal of E 140th Avenue thoroughfare from Palm Beach County thoroughfare right away. I mean, it's very clearly said. And, they say, well, it's already off, but we want to make sure it stays off.
Right.
And that's my question here. It says annual exclusion.
Well, because those classifications can be reconsidered every year by the county. So we want to make sure that we keep track of each time that they're considering those classifications, and make sure that they're aware of this policy. This is our policy, that all we have to do is take this page out of our comprehensive plan anytime that they're considering putting roads on the thoroughfare protection plan for future improvements. We're saying we don't want that improvement, and our comprehensive plan says it.
Now, does Palm Beach County have a say in the municipality's comp plans? Do they approve or disapprove, or just say, I have it, thank you very much?
Well, that's usually the case. I mean, if there's something in there that that goes against a policy that they have, they can. The only vehicle that I can think of that they have is that intergovernmental planning and review committee. If they essentially complain or file an objection, that committee can be convened to try to work out a solution to their objection. And in all my years in the planning profession, I've been to one of those meetings. So that doesn't happen very often, but that's the only vehicle I can think of.
Just FYI, it took us 2 years to get our first comp plan approved.
It might be helpful to understand that your comp plan is like the planning and zoning version of the charter. It is the basic document that can't be violated. And there's a very famous Martin County case where somewhere upwards of 200 or 300 condominium units were removed by judge order because they were built in conflict to the county's own comp plan. So it's a very important controlling and protective document for the town.
Just, from a 10,000-foot view, everything that Jim has talked about between pages 6 and 14, look in order.
My only concern is this overlay, and I guess I can be swayed to go either way on this one, because I agree with you that on some level it looks appropriate, but I'm concerned that maybe, and this is not the right time to address it, but there should be a comprehensive amendment for the rest of the town regarding some of these issues, such as cottage industries and small businesses and things like that, that people want to have, historically have had, and probably completely have just under the radar.
Yeah.
Mr. Ford, can you use your mic, please? We are recording.
Sorry.
I know you don't like to use it, but just pull it
Yeah,
towards
well,
you and it'll help.
Don't think about it.
The specifics of the standards and the criteria for the home office and the residential enterprise are not in the comprehensive plan. They're in our land development code. It certainly is appropriate for this for the LPA to make a recommendation to the town council that our ULDC committee and or P&Z need to take a look at those two items and make some changes. Matter of fact, I think the council is looking for some suggestions for ULDC revisions, and I think taking a look at those two items is an appropriate, good recommendation for this agency to make.
Well, it's my understanding there is a ULDC committee,
Yes,
correct?
yeah.
And they've been working for the last couple of years on some revisions and changes. I don't believe we've seen them at our level, and I haven't personally followed their progress, so that's probably my problem. But I would like to know, have they proposed anything recently that we should be looking at, or are they still in sort of committee mode of working it out?
Well, the only part of the code that is sort of in limbo that they've started reviewing is signs. They're 75% through reviewing the sign section in our code and making recommendations. Now, the way the ULDC committee works is historically anyway, is that the council directs the ULDC committee to look at certain items.
Oh, okay.
Right? It's not like let's start at the beginning and do a comprehensive update. We want you to look at the landscape code or the tree removal code or sign code.
So you're saying we can make a recommendation to council?
Oh,
the
absolutely.
Council makes a recommendation to ULDC to look at
Or
small business, cottage industries, things of that nature.
yeah,
for the rest of this.
yeah. I think that's a perfectly appropriate recommendation.
I also have a comment on, making the illegal or all the businesses that have been around for a long time to become compliant. I believe there is a process. If they wanted to become compliant, they can come and there is a process established for them to become legal. Is that correct or?
Well,
Yeah.
well, they certainly can come in and make an application to be designated a residential enterprise. But that designation may require them to make some changes to their business. Like, for example, the number of heavy construction trucks that are.
Yeah, it won't be a home-based operation. I mean, it would be more like a commercial.
Well, I
It
think the
is.
elephant in the room is the industries like Choquette
Yes.
on Oki and F and
Mhm.
diagonally across the street. I forget what that guy's name is, but they have a big mulching operation along with what is it down on B Road where the horse manure transfer station is
Mm.
that really slipped in under the radar that
Yeah.
was not heard by this committee as somehow they end up miraculously with the former city manager and the developer. So I don't want to get to the bottom of it now, but I think one other thing, if you can just walk us through what's going to happen with that property on the north side of Okeechobee, east of F Road, right next door to the Portuguese American Club, that was, I'll use the word illegally, cleared, and they would not cease and desist. They said, we're doing this, and I guess Jamie, worked it out with them that they wouldn't do any more. What's going to happen with that property without an overlay?
Well, they did clear, and obviously, and they did get a waiver under the tree clearing code for clearing for I think it was 30 feet around structures that are proposed and where the driveway is going to go. The only problem is they did not submit a survey which showed exactly where the driveway is going to be and where the structures are going to be. So that one kind of fell through the cracks, if you will, a little bit. And I'm not really
Things fall
quite
through the
sure.
cracks in Lox Groves every day.
I'm not sure exactly how that one is.
If I can comment, a lot of things happen in the town where somebody pulls a permit for something and then far exceeds the parameters of that permit in the implementation or the production of it on the site. And that was a case in that site
As the old
too.
saying goes, it's better to ask forgiveness than for permission.
And so governmentally and procedurally, there are cures and ways to get back and kind of correct that or punish that or address that, but it's not quick and it doesn't replace the damage done in real time. So, You know, if you pull a permit to do exotic clearing and then you clear native trees across or clear cut a property, you have far exceeded what you might have come in and said, do I need a permit? Oh yeah, you just need this. And then, you know, I'm sorry. I forget. I shouldn't forget with a nose like this. It's very uncomfortable. Um, but you know, it's a frequent problem. And it's not just here, it's everywhere. You know, people walk into town hall. Do I need a permit to do XYZ? Well, yeah, you need this permit or that permit. And out the door they go with it. And then next thing you know, they're doing X, Y, and Z plus A, B, C, D, E, F, and so on. And it gets reported. And then you're in a notice of violation, a follow-up. There is statute provision for twice penalty fees, but here, because we only take the first $61 over the transom, that is not even a cost of doing business on the scale and scope of some of these things that are going on. So we are working on systems and ways to beef up that entire scenario to prevent that kind of stuff in the future.
Well, it sort of goes back to my original question to Mr. Fleischman, is with an overlay in place, will that have some degree of, I'll use the word parenthetically, control over this particular property?
Well, we have a more general type recommendation in here that talks about non-conforming uses in general, and that we essentially have two options in my mind. Either we do code enforcement right away, or we come up with a system where we sit down with these property owners and try to work something out, which is what we're proposing in here. Come up with a way that we're not necessarily closing down your business in its entirety, but we're coming up with a plan, if you will, to allow you to stay in business, but also come into compliance with the town standards and regulations.
Dennis,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but I'm trying to understand because, I mean, okay, right now we do have rules and regulations. They're not being followed and lack of code enforcement. So, I mean, and they're not following the rules now. How is this overlay going to make them follow the rules?
Good question. I mean, this is something that towns have the ability to do because they're a town and they have the right in their charter, which is a state law. And so we have all the rights to do things. The fact that somebody wants to thumb their nose at us and do what they want to do doesn't make for a good neighbor. And I think Jim's comments is to sit down with them. And do you want to be on the town's bad side forever? Because we can do a lot of things, raise taxes, make a special whatever.
But that's
give
what
you the permits to get onto Okeechobee. You know, that's the sort of things that.
Well,
that's what I'm saying. And I don't feel that my question was answered regarding, do we have a process in place for them to become compliant?
yes.
Yes,
do.
we have.
Yes, we do.
Okay, so they're
multiple-
not doing it because they don't want to. So how us changing all of this?
It has to be the process right now to come into compliance. Has to be initiated by a code enforcement action.
Why? Can we just?
Because the magistrate is going to say, okay, I'm going to issue fines of $1,000 a day, or I will give you the opportunity to sit down and work it out with the town. Which do you choose?
I understand that would put pressure on them, but
Well,
can we as a town approach them right now and say, listen, if you don't comply, code enforcement will be on you once we get it?
Well,
That narrative is well known, and I just want to metaphorically say there are laws, but people still commit crimes. I mean, there are costs and agendas and conflicting
my point.
interests, and
But
it's a matter of time. Yeah, we'll eventually get them. In fact,
how does changing the law is going to help us? If they don't respect what we have now, they are not
Well,
going to respect what we.
The
planning.
really apples and oranges issues, what you have in the laws is what you can enforce. What you don't have, you can't enforce. And much of what's out here has historically just happened here and then has over time become non-conforming and grandfathering or came over at the incorporation or maybe started out within the rules and expanded out of the rules over time. There's all kinds of reasons this happens. And it is a cat and mouse game to a certain degree, and it does take a lot of process, time, energy, and effort to actually bring people into compliance. But to the magistrate point, that's a judge that hears,
I know.
the issues and can levy substantial fines and can hold properties accountable. The other place where we touch non-conforming properties a lot, where people have done something that isn't compliant, is when they go to sell the property. We always get the calls about open liens, open permit problems, anything the town may have in its records. And all of a sudden, there's a huge incentive from the property owners to come into compliance because they can't pass the property on without it being in compliance. So, there are points along the timeline where we got them or can get them, but it's not, there's a lot of things going on, a lot of moving parts. If everybody complied, we wouldn't even be sitting here and talking about this stuff.
Well, regarding the overlay, I think we need to focus on having code enforcement before we change things in that sense. That's my opinion.
And just if it's helpful to you, that system is part of the annual budgetary conversations, which is actually we're thick into that now. And there's another budget workshop coming up in 2 weeks. And those plans are in the works to fortify or make more robust some of the systems that would go after some of these egregious and chronic problems. But it's never satisfying to have to chase down somebody that's already done things, that are offensive to the town. It's just part of what we deal with on a daily basis, literally.
Well, again, my opinion, to accommodate them, just so they can become compliant. I'm sorry, don't.
Well,
So-
can I jump in?
Of course.
It sounds to me basically that by creating the overlay, we are saying we're going to open up Okeechobee Boulevard to commercialization.
Mhm.
It's just kind of the beginning step of it. And I guess the counter argument is, well, it's Okeechobee Boulevard and they're kind of doing it anyway, so let's try to get a handle on it. I mean, is that kind of where we're at here?
Well, obviously, we'll be allowing additional uses to be approved and operate legally on Okeechobee over and above what they can legally do now. And it is
Let me just jump in.
opening up.
Yeah, but so I guess my point of view that I may want to open up for discussion is I don't really have personally a problem with any of the conditional uses or the uses that have been suggested for the overlay. My thought process, though, is that why are we rewarding Okeechobee Boulevard property owners? And when most of what you're proposing sounds like cottage industry-esque type of things that the large properties that we have, why couldn't we have those kind of businesses somewhat scattered throughout the town? Because in essence, we kind of already do. I mean, yes, we don't have a bed and breakfast or something like that, but we certainly have
We do have a bed and breakfast, not in Okeechobee, but we do.
in the town.
Yeah, on
Yeah.
what is
Yeah.
it, B Road? I can never remember.
Southern Palms.
In one of the letter roads.
And then, but that's kind of my point is that it seems like we're saying, okay, Okeechobee, we're going to allow this stuff when historically I would say a lot of the stuff's already been in the town for a long period of time. So I'm just concerned that we're sending a signal that Okeechobee is going to be the next Southern if we just keep chipping away at it. And B, we have all these little cottage industry businesses that aren't allowed right now on paper, but are probably running anyway. So that might be an issue that I would like to see addressed.
I'm sorry, I agree with you. And to me, this sounds like opening a can of worms. It scares me, honestly.
Well, cottage businesses and residential enterprises are allowed in the AR district anywhere in town under certain circumstances.
Right.
With those uses allowed on Okeechobee, this policy says that that a property owner has the ability to sit down with the town council and go over his development concept, and maybe allowed to have more customers visit, more employees than you can in other areas of the town. It's a little bit more permissive in terms of the restrictions and requirements than you would have to meet elsewhere in town.
I understand that, and that's actually the crux of my point, is that I think that what you're proposing should be good for the rest of the town too. I'm not saying that we're opening it wide open. I'm just saying that they should be able to come and say, hey, we want to do the same thing that these people in Okeechobee are going to be doing. And the other part of my point is that by creating this overlay, we're saying that we're treating this section of our town as even though we're not calling it commercial, we're calling it an overlay. We're basically opening it up to commercialization.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I certainly see nothing wrong with us totally overhauling the home office and residential enterprise sections of our ULDC. The thing that that's always concerned me is that we have not identified the kinds of uses that can be residential enterprises. I mean, that opens it up to any industrial use that it just says business that's owned by the property owner. Now we need to work on that, regardless of whether or not it's on Okeechobee or elsewhere in town, and we can make it a universal definition, which could go anywhere. But there's nothing wrong in the overlay with us saying that you can do it. I mean, just like we're saying any use in the AR district can be allowed.
I agree with you. And I guess that's part of my point, is that we should be maybe talking about those things before we start talking about overlays on Okeechobee.
Yeah, I would think we need to address the residential businesses before anything, right? I mean, that's what we're talking about. We need to specify. That's why we need to address those businesses first and
Well,
make sure.
No, I totally disagree with that. The comprehensive plan sets the direction of town actions that are implemented in the land development code. So you need to have the language in the comprehensive plan that directs the town to do something with the code.
Okay. So,
I understand what you mean. This is the
Just-
umbrella document,
Yes.
and then
Yeah.
Just
No, I
one
get it.
conceptual comment. An overlay can be permissive or restrictive or some combination thereof. An overlay doesn't indicate that you're just making the rules more lax. You could make them more restrictive in an overlay. A good example of that is a historic district overlay that says, if you live in this 4 squares, it's got this overlay, your house will look like this or have only these 3 colors, or if you put an addition on it, it has to match the original architecture of the historic part of town. Those kinds of things are more restrictive overlays that are
Or
often
somebody paints
used.
their house.
What's that?
Before somebody paints their house green.
Yeah, before you have a, bright purple dome home in the middle of a colonial village or something.
And that's kind of how I see this, is we're trying to get a hand on it before.
And
Does that.
that's kind of the mindset that I'm thinking of too. I really like the idea of the overlay. Because if we go ahead, set out parameters, restrictions that we want in place for Okeechobee, that way, when somebody does come in, which is eventually just like when that my mind's referencing the day property, having something set in place, having those restrictions saying this is what we want, instead of saying, well, having nothing set at all, and then turn around and just sue us anyways and get an approval for a commercial however they want. Having those restrictions, I think that the overlay probably should go to ULDC, kind of to see what they're thinking of the whole concept is, seeing if we should add restrictions into that. Because I think, as of now, it's a little general. I think it could get a little more specific. I think that ULDC probably would have more of a mindset because I know that we have a couple more things that we're looking at and that I have a couple questions about. But I think having more eyes on that, because it is a big thing. The overlay
It is,
is
yep,
it's a
absolutely.
big change. It's 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 just recognizing that we have something there that's a little different than the rest of the town. So getting more eyes and getting more opinions is probably the best idea for that.
Yeah, like I said earlier, if the council passes passes this on first reading, or with revisions that this committee makes, second reading would not occur for up to 7 months after that. So, and during that time, we have the ability to revise this. We can make changes.
So the restrictions we can add on the comp plan, or those would be only on the ULDC?
Well, we can add more detail in terms of some standards in here in the comp plan. Yes, because we already have a limitation on the size of the property. That's a standard. We have the floor area ratio. So there are some standards in the comprehensive plan. Now, we don't necessarily want to get too specific. The comprehensive plan is hard to revise because of all the steps it has to go through. So I would personally like to see the specific standards be included in the town's code, because that can be revised easier.
Well, I don't like that exactly for that reason, because it can be changed, it's too easily.
I'm just talking about process, not that you can sneak stuff by in the.
No, I'm not talking about that, but next government comes and they change the ULDC, and the ULDC, it's very easy to change.
I kind of like the idea of adding a little more restrictions to the comp plan, only because when an applicant does come in, they're going to have to make that comp plan amendment.
Yep.
And that's going to be a whole hell of a lot harder than just a special exception in the ULDC.
That's similar to the work you were doing on the charter committee, which requires changes by voter referendum versus two public meetings to change the ordinance, or one meeting to change the resolution. So the seriousness and scale and scope of permission or restrictions is more difficult at those charter or comp plan levels, obviously, than the ULDC or regular council meetings, et cetera, for resolutions.
And just to make sure, because I know we don't want to, and I understand what you're saying, you don't want to be too specific, because probably we'll run into the risk of denial from the agencies that have to review it, correct?
The way the review process is going now, once we forward it to the state and regional agencies, we almost never get comments back. So I mean, I think if it's something that's of local impact, the regional and state agencies really don't comment on that anymore. So from that perspective, I don't think that's a reason not to make changes here.
So what you're proposing for this overlay is one property deep, right? Or one lot deep.
Yep.
The corner of, or the, what is it? The north west corner of Okeechobee and E Road, there seems to be a dogleg property there. What property is that?
Community of Hope.
My understanding is that that is actually two parcels there.
What page, sorry?
6, sorry.
6 of which one?
Page 6.
Got it.
That dog leg there, that secondary lot was purchased. Did they combine that property or something? Or-
Well, they own the two parcels right in front of that too.
Oh, I understand they own, but that's actually 4 pieces of property. And the way you have it written out is that they then would be, that they would be affected by this. And I remember them about a year or so ago, wasn't it, Dennis, that they came in here and wanted to, and they wanted to expand, and because of the rules we had, and because they bought that property after the fact, they weren't allowed to.
Right.
Why is it showing that dogleg property is one lot deep?
Well, Well, because it has frontage on Okeechobee. And the,
No, my understanding is that they actually had, there's 3 lots on the frontage there
right.
from them, right?
Mhm.
And then there's a lot behind them. But the way the map indicates it is that it's actually just 3 properties total.
You're talking E Road and.
E
and
Road,
Oki?
and Okeechobee,
Yeah.
the northwest corner. It's my understanding that they had purchased sometime in the last several years, the back 5-10 acres, whatever that was.
Right. But it's separate lots.
Yeah, I know. See, that's what if you follow your map down here,
It looks like
they
one.
are all the shaded area. Granted, it's
Right.
really kind of hard to see.
Yeah.
The shaded areas are basically relatively uniform.
Yeah.
Except for that one, and then the one that's all the way at the end by the blue, which is what industrial.
I don't know if I can
That's a
interject. I don't know if I
school,
can
no?
show,
Yeah.
because I just have the property appraisers show the map show.
Okay,
It
so
looks
it
like
does
they've done
show-
a unity of title of that back property with the church.
Okay.
So I don't know if I'll pass
Yeah,
this
no.
around.
That was my
print it out,
question,
some-
but it should be public record, so it's, all right. So basically,
Well, okay, this overlay for those properties covers the L-shaped property has an approved site plan on it. The 2 properties in the front don't.
right.
And the property in the back doesn't either. So this overlay would cover the extent of their site plan approval, current site plan approval. And the same thing applies to Big Dog Ranch. Because there was actually a couple parcels there that they combined. So we extended Big Dog Ranch to the south to encompass the area of its approved site plan. And the same thinking would apply to the church parcel.
Right, but so this overlay, how does it affect those 2 properties? I mean, Big Dog Ranch, the type of business they have is not listed under the permitted uses or suggested uses in staff's recommendation.
Yeah. Well, it was when it was approved.
Right, but the church then, my understanding is that they were prevented from expanding into those other 2 lots because of our current rules. How is this overlay going to affect their plans to expand? Is this going to open the door for them now because we're creating an overlay?
No, I don't think so, because as far as I'm reading the overlay here, it doesn't include those acres to the north. The L-shaped piece is just their current approval.
Right, and then, but the 2 properties on Okeechobee,
Yeah.
west of them don't have any approvals, or do they?
No.
Right, and they came before us wanting to get approvals to the planning and zoning board before, and I believe we turned them down.
Well,
So by creating the overlay, does that mean that they get to come back and get a second bite of the apple? Saying,
Yes.
hey, you're creating an Okeechobee low impact corridor here. We want to revisit our plans, even though I believe is it our code that says specifically about the churches and the expanding of them? Since we have so many of them.
yes, well,
I don't think it's specific to churches.
order-
though.
I think it was what they specifically
in
asked
order
for at the time.
in order for them to do anything on those 2 properties, they would have to get a comprehensive plan amendment to institutional, because when the churches were approved, they were allowed uses under the county's code in the AR district. That's how all the churches got approved. Now, in order to be approved as a church, you have to be institutional, and they would have to come in with a comprehensive plan amendment that changed the designation of their existing site, plus those 2 from AR to institutional. And I mean, there's nothing that this overlay could do to promote or inhibit that.
Have a question about another policy here.
Are we finished with this?
Sure.
Are you
Yeah,
satisfied on the answer?
yeah, I mean, don't have any motions yet, so we haven't gotten to that part, but I'm not very comfortable with the overlay. The rest of it, I don't really have much problems with. But
Just question regarding policy 126 for the maximum floor area ratio of a self-storage. Why is this here? Self-storage
Okay.
facility, page 10.
Yeah. So, self-storage is currently a permitted use in the CL district.
CL.
Yeah,
Okay.
which means it has to go on Southern Boulevard.
Mhm.
There was some support for self-storage in the visioning session. And there has been some support for increasing the floor area ratio on Southern Boulevard to help attract business and increase tax base. The one use that we've had the most interest in recently on Southern Boulevard is self-storage. I mean, I've had 3 or 4 different self-storage companies call and inquire about self-storage on Southern Boulevard, but with the current floor area ratio of 0.1, self-storage doesn't work. They can't do it. So because of the interest and the support at the visioning session, and the fact that it's a permitted use, I'm suggesting that we allow an alternative method to determine how much space they can build, other than saying you have to be limited to 0.1. And that methodology essentially is you take your property, you apply the setbacks, you apply the lot coverage, you apply all of the landscaping requirements, you apply the parking requirements and the height restrictions, and whatever is left, you can build. And that's essentially what that is. Now, I'm thinking of revising that because we just got in a self-storage proposal on Southern Boulevard that essentially is calculating how much space that they can build using essentially this same formula. And I think what they came up with is too much. So I think that we have to, when we get to the code, we have to put a ceiling on how much. I think on a 2-acre property, applying just these criteria as listed here, they could build 130,000 square feet, which in my mind is too much.
Home Depot.
Yeah, no, that's one of the reasons why I have,
Yeah.
we should, print this out for everybody.
Yeah,
is,
yeah. I think
just doing the
that's-
math on 0.15 FAR on 5 acres, I end up with 32,000.
no. In the overlay, it's 0.1. And then the commercial zoning district is not allowed in the overlay. It's only allowed on Southern.
Okay, so it's 0.1.
Yeah. So
Commercial law is not on the overlay.
the way that I came up with the 0.15 was I looked at the initial approval of Palms West Plaza. And that's including the portion of that center that's not developed yet over on the west side there. And the FAR that was approved by Palm Beach County on that parcel was 0.15. And I don't believe that we can, with the small lots that we have in our land development regulations, I don't believe that we can fit any more than an FAR of 0.15 on Southern Boulevard for commercial
Southern
law.
Boulevard,
Yeah, yeah.
0.1.
That's an increase, but percentage wise, it's quite a bit. It's 50% increase. However, all those parcels are small, So it's not going to result in large developments.
One thing I mean, the self-storage, I think that's more of a benefit for outside of the town. I don't see many of the residents even using a self-storage because you don't move on to 5 acres just to have all your stuff parked off and off of Southern Boulevard.
Pay for it.
And pay for it. I think that I'm sure we're all pretty in agreement that, we could probably axe that policy, the 1.2.6 altogether. I don't think that's something that, that we're going to be looking, because from the last meeting, I'm thinking of the public storage that was brought to us. And, it's more of a consensus of the whole committee that, it's not something that's going to benefit the residents of the town on Southern Boulevard regardless.
It was more of an industrial use. than,
Yes.
self-storage.
And besides, it says above 0.15. So.
Yeah, and that's what Jim was explaining, that when he got that 2-acre proposal, and it was like 144,000, which is
Yeah.
insane.
Well, okay. I mean, I certainly have no problem with you guys recommending that this policy be stricken. The town council is going to have to consider it anyway, because
Mhm.
that self-storage proposal that's coming in is has calculated its based on a similar, which is going to require that they apply for and get a code amendment approved that they can use that formula.
Mhm.
So the town council is going to hear that. Well, you guys are too. 'Cause
I was just gonna say, how
you guys
come
are too. Yeah.
to come to us before it goes
Yes.
to council?
Yes, it would. Yes, it would.
Have that fun discussion then.
Yeah. The DOA, if
So, like I said, go ahead and make any revisions to this that you want.
May I, number 2 here, conditional uses, furrier,
Well,
like landscape breakfast, like
No.
furrier, like sell skin?
no, I made a mistake. I meant
Well,
a
that
gut.
would be farrier, no furrier.
Yeah, I misspelled it. I misspelled it. Yeah.
Okay,
Farrier
That's-
is
okay, so
is
that-
what it is, not furrier. I misspelled it.
just making sure.
Jim, if I, with the overlay, and I'm sorry to keep coming back to this, but there's nothing that talks about buffers or anything like that. So if this were to pass by me, at least, I would like to see in the comprehensive plan a statement stating that we need a real strong buffer between these properties that are now exercising, and we can call it overlay, but I think the reality is that we're allowing commercial on Okeechobee. And again, I have grave concerns about that, but if it were to go forward, I
Yeah.
think there has to be codified in the comprehensive plan a very good buffer between the residential AR properties that are, lot number 2, the second one back there. Like, for instance, the property that Dennis mentioned, you drive by, I can see the back of that guy's house. I've never seen the back of that guy's house before.
Yeah.
Actually, I can't even see the front of it because I live on Compton Road, right on the other side of it.
Yeah.
So
No, I agree.
they cleared
think
all
that's
the way
good.
there, so let's just say that that's now not gonna be the norm on Okeechobee, to just go straight down, clear it all out and put cottage industries, low impact
Yeah,
things,
yeah.
couriers.
Right? I mean, we could even talk about like a lot of commercial properties. Sometimes they have a block wall for a buffer, I mean,
Yeah.
and I'm not
That
saying
really,
right up to the
that
lot
really
line. I'm
says
saying,
commercial.
block wall and then trees,
Yeah.
like the natural barrier between that and the property, but then a block wall, so I think there's maybe other recommendations we could make.
Yeah.
Because there's already commercial
Area.
on Okeechobee.
something
I
like
hate to say
300
that.
feet.
Yeah. Our landscape code does have that exact provision between any non-residential, non-agricultural use that abuts an AR zoning district has to have a wall and landscaping. So that would apply to these properties.
How, what is it, 50 feet, 100 feet?
I'm sorry, can you say again?
What was that?
The buffer, I mean, on the back of the property, is it 25 feet? Is it 50 feet?
The,
Is it anything that we want it to be?
the landscape buffer itself right now is 25 feet, but that's a portion of the setback. I mean, setbacks to the buildings, or we can expand that to say that the landscape buffer has to be 100 feet or whatever you
But this
decide.
25 feet is commercial.
No,
This is
no,
AR. This is
This
for
is,
everything right
AR,
now.
everybody.
it's,
Everybody right now. We
it's-
haven't touched this yet.
it's any non-residential, non-agricultural use, which these are. Has to have that landscape buffer and a wall if it abuts an AR zoning district. That's in the code now.
Well, wait, so in an AR and it abuts an AR? I mean, it's already in the AR.
It's a use. It's talking about the use. It's not talking about the zoning district. It says any non-residential, non-agricultural
Cultural.
use.
Right, in an AR district needs to have the 25-foot buffer, landscape buffer.
Right.
It used to be 50, no? Oh, no, not the buffer. I'm
No,
sorry, the
No,
setback.
that's setbacks.
Setback, yeah.
Setbacks.
Just I was alluding to that earlier in the comments when there was discussions about an overlay or a corridor where you might force the issue of conservation tracks or trails or something on the backside to create that buffer rather than, have what's in place standardly today. And that's your prerogative to kind of
I think
set some of those conditional rules if you're recommending approval or denial.
Do we need to make a motion on each of these policies?
go through it, just,
So, yeah,
Well, it's
one,
probably, to get through this thing, before midnight, I think it's probably a good idea.
so can we?
Let's start at number one. Let's start at number three.
right.
Okay, Thais, if you want to start.
Oh, we can start for,
Mr. Ford,
The
you
last
had,
one?
you had talked about the transportation. That was all the policies that are under the transportation element, or are there individual ones that you're?
If I were to make a motion, and I'm not saying I am, but my motion would be that we adopt everything but the overlay, anything to do with the overlay. So therefore, any of the text amendments with regards to the uses, permitted uses, things of that nature, that might be the most overarching way, but I was
like
suggesting before that, just out loud, if I were to go down this list, policy, page 10, policy 1.1A1, the first one, I would vote in favor of all that language that's there. That was basically the transportation part of it. The second one, 1.25, I certainly don't have any problems with that. I'd vote in favor of that. Up until Mr. Neal's comment, I really didn't have much of a problem with that because that was in a commercial area and it's already a commercial area, and I didn't really think that it was going that much, but I'm not that bothered by it. 1.16, that's basically where I start to have problems. If I were to agree to this, I guess I'd want, some language in there about the buffer, but as you said, there is some maximum. You don't talk about maximum, you only talk about minimum. My issue is that I would say it's 5 acres minimum and maximum, but that's certainly open for discussion. But again, I'm not comfortable. I think it's sending a signal. So therefore, everything else with regards to the overlay goes out. And then as far as the Southern Boulevard policies and amendments, I don't have any problems with those. So that's kind of my 2 cents of how I was thinking of voting. If anyone wants to make a motion.
which one is specific for Southern?
So
Attachment D2?
That, let's see, wasn't there a couple of them? It was more in this,
Page 14.
I was going to go with page 4, that the Southern Boulevard text amendments, and then table 1-8 to increase the intensity and maximum floor ratio that we talked about. Add policy 1.2 to prohibit
four?
following uses. Page 4.
See,
See Southern Boulevard text amendments.
Okay, got it.
I don't have any problem with those proposals.
so can we get through
Okay, so
everything but the
to
overlay?
5 to 6, they're all for Southern, got
I
it.
make a motion to get through everything but the overlay?
The
That's
over-
my point, is I was just bringing it to everyone's attention that you guys can make whatever motions you want to, and then we talk about it and vote
Talk
on
about
it.
the
The overlay and
So there's
1.2.6 as well. Just that's the one, the self-storage increasing the over the FAR above 0.15.
So the way I saw it is that the way staff has it broken down is that we have section A map amendments. I suspect that we could make a motion and pass that without really much further discussion. All that's doing is just sort of codifying what these maps are representing. It doesn't talk about the overlay. The overlay is B, that's the one I got a problem with, and then C, other than Neil's point about the 0.15. So somebody, I guess I can make the motion since I'm not the acting chairman anymore, right?
Real quick, policy 1.2.5, the prohibited uses.
Mhm.
Can we add anything into that, like rental complex? Do we have to do something like that?
What do you mean by rental complex?
Like
Yeah.
apartment building?
Oh,
Yeah,
they're
That's not
not
allowed
allowed in town.
anyway.
No, this,
They're
this,
not allowed anyway.
yeah, this is essentially talking about the commercial low district on Southern Boulevard. And rental apartments are not allowed in that anyway. Plus, there's no parcel on Southern Boulevard that could accommodate.
What about another elderly home or something like this? That's giving residences to.
Isn't that
multiple
institutional?
people.
No. Yeah, that right. That's right. That would not be in the commercial low district. That would be in institutional use.
Okay.
All right, I make a motion to approve the map amendments. And basically, it's the map amendment not including the overlay. So I guess
You're on page 4.
I guess I'm on page 1 now, looking at map amendments. Well, page 4 was where Southern Boulevard started.
Okay.
So everyone kind of following me that this one section, I'm just dividing this thing up into thirds. So that does not include the overlay, or does it, Jim?
Well, it's
Yeah, we need to get rid of the.
number 1, no? 16.
Yeah,
We
get
just-
rid of 1, so it'd be transportation element. You want to have some?
Mm-mm.
So we're just, nope.
Oh, no, that's fine.
We're just gonna do that. We'll skip.
Gotcha.
future
Where does
language.
the rest of the committee stand on the overlay? I mean, we might be just wasting our time if you guys want to vote for it. I'll just be the odd duck out.
I'm right on with you.
We're-
Like,
yeah,
I'm not,
It's something that needs we need, definitely it's going to take a lot more digging into and more of a deep dive discussion for the overlay.
agreed.
It's something that's got to be well planned out before we go ahead and set it in motion.
All right.
Well, I've heard from town council members, and the ones that I've talked to have said that they would, they want an overlay for Okeechobee.
They want to.
I'm sorry, say that again?
They want an overlay on Okeechobee. Whether it's this overlay or whether it's the one that we can craft, is that the limiting the ability of people living on Okeechobee who want to, because no one's going to buy their house as a house, period. I got this really nice place on 2.5 acres on Okeechobee. You want to buy it? No, because you're on Okeechobee.
Can we,
So to have an overlay, it then gives them an opportunity, because these people probably lived here. When we were at one meeting, it was at the Foam Coast Presbyterian Church, where all of the residents who lived on Okeechobee were there to talk about, the plight that they're up against. You know, not that I would call it a plight, but it's a box that's been built around them because we became a town and everything else has grown up around us. And if they wanted to sell their little place, maybe the one right next door to the fire department on Okeechobee, which is a nice gate in front of it, it's a big property. But, you know, that's unusual because most of them, when you look across the street, they're, you know, 2.5 acre, you know, mom and pop lived here, I raised my kids and now they're gone and I want to sell and I can't sell it.
I mean, I understand that the council can decide either way, but you know, we're here to filter a little. I mean, we're here to give our opinion, right, on it. So
Because, you know, we don't vote on the town council.
exactly.
So
So
can we have another meeting just on the overlay?
I would like that.
Yeah, yes, we can. One of the recommendations that you could make, now, because of the COVID and stuff like that, we have not had adequate opportunities, in my mind, for discussion and to have the public come to these meetings and make comments and stuff. Your recommendation could be that delay first reading and give us and the council more time to obtain more public input because we haven't had the opportunity to do that.
I like that. Okay with that? So we're going to pass anything tonight or are we just going to?
Yeah, we are.
kick the can?
Transportation.
And then we can, and then if, when we get together again, and we will be having probably regular meetings coming up because we do have several applications in the pipeline now. So we can have an LPA session at those meetings. So if you have any ideas about setbacks, buffers, any other specific criteria that you want to include in the comp plan amendments that would make them more palatable, by all means, bring
So
them.
that's what I'd like to go on record. I mean, with the overlay, I'm for it with many recommendations. And I just think we need more time to talk about those recommendations, think about it, talk to people, get the city's opinion.
Well,
I'm
hold
sorry.
on real quick. Jamie, this meeting was properly noticed, right? And this was obviously on the agenda and we got no public comment.
Did you
Either
receive
via
any
email.
comments on this?
No one tried to come in.
No, and there's a bit of a shoehorn job here because of just the way things sequence out. And to Jim's earlier point, there was actually a public workshop intended just to talk about this issue back a couple of months ago, and it got obliterated by COVID, and he had to scramble to get different criteria for the DEO to move the deliverables forward. But there is plenty of opportunity, and it could certainly be your recommendation to come back or to revisit that piece with the
I
public
personally would like to
input.
hear from the public and get a better handle on not just my point of view of Okeechobee, but really.
Let's
Can
give
we
them
do a-
chance.
Can we do a mailer
They
and
don't
a
wanna do
survey
anything,
online?
then-
Can we do a mailer and a survey online? Like, you know, send to every household in town something in writing, say like log in, like we did with the census.
Or an email.
Log in
I mean,
and-
so we
Well, I
don't.
But
think the
we don't
problem
have
is
everybody's
that they
emails.
did that in some respects, the visioning sessions, that they.
Yeah, but only for a few, 400 people got the email?
It was actually much more than that. and It was well publicized. It was over many
Yeah,
months,
I mean,
and
I saw it all over
but the
didn't.
you're always going to have that
the
criticism.
Facebook site about the whole thing, all the.
I don't do
dates and times.
Facebook.
You're the admin of your own.
I don't do
life.
Facebook, okay.
Right.
Jamie was looking to say something because he had his.
Well, it was just all those are options you could implement, but they're logistics and rolling it out based on what's decided and what the recommendations are. Your focus is you're for it, you're against it, you're for it with conditions, for it without conditions, whatever, as a recommendation to the council. And if the council agrees with you on those, getting more input, rolling it out, having additional meetings, whatever, then they would direct town staff to implement the logistics of doing that. And we would work closely with the process and the planner and the public and the tools we have available to facilitate that.
So do we want
You don't have
Do
to
you
decide
have,
what that looks like tonight because there's a whole bunch that goes into
put
that.
on the policy numbers and
Just a quick question for Jim. Do you have any of the documentation from that, what do we do with Okeechobee workshop that we had
Yeah, I got,
a couple of decades ago?
oh,
A
from the one in
decade ago.
2015, or you're talking about the visioning session? I mean,
No,
and
no,
I-
no. We had a session at Palms West Presbyterian Church, and we set it up. I think you and is
Yeah,
Joe
yeah.
still on your team? And he was there, and we all sat down and talked about we don't want churches every other property. And we talked about other things, and it was the mostly. Then that's where we heard from the residents on Okeechobee.
Yeah.
I don't have
Mr.
that anywhere. I'm sure I
Well,
have it someplace stored up here, but
yeah.
forget that.
Yeah, I have a massive file on that. I'll have to go back and look to see if I have notes that were taken from that workshop. But
Yeah.
we did have, the Planning and Zoning Board had 8 meetings on the previous attempt at an overlay.
Planning and zoning board did?
Yes,
Yep.
Was
When
that
was it?
roughly 2015?
15.
I guess I didn't join, because I don't remember that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, that
You've
was
got-
literally.
2015.
Literally,
I think I joined planning and zoning in 2015, though, didn't I?
Jim, didn't you get all the way to a first draft of an ordinance
we,
as part of that
we took
throughput?
we took a recommendation of approval, but by the LPA, which was the Planning and Zoning Board at that time, to the council, and they said, "Well, okay, that's fine, but I want to have." They wanted to have one more workshop, which we took it to the church, and there were negative comments and positive comments, and then it died right there.
I have a question. You said there were many applications down the pipe already. What kind of applications?
Well, we got the self-storage, and then.
For Southern Boulevard, okay.
yeah.
No, related to, I'm talking about the overlay.
No.
Oh, related to the overlay? The only one related to the overlay is the daycare center up on Okeechobee is coming in with a request to expand their capacity from 87 students to 120 students and eliminate the church that they have approved on the property. That's the only one that's on.
Planet Kids or something like that.
Yeah, Planet Kids, right? And then the rest of them are on Southern.
And I'm just gonna,
So we're back to what we're getting done here, or
Yeah.
not getting done.
we have a
We're
motion.
going to
We do.
have someone
I
make
gotta
a
go.
motion to bring back more information on Okeechobee that you can find in your,
Right.
and then look at the overlay, the other parts of this that look okay, that's not an overlay. Do you want to go ahead and get those passed tonight? So we're not conglomerated with that on the next meeting?
Motion.
We
okay,
have a motion in
Wait,
Yeah, I have
place.
the
I think you
motion.
started the motion, but it was never seconded and never.
No,
no, he's,
it was.
Yeah, I think he was
you-
said if he
Matt
would.
started. Yeah, he said he would, but you said we would like to have another meeting, so we need a motion for that, another meeting to get more information.
Can we have the clerk read back the motion she believes is on the table so we can see where you are?
Mr. Ford made the motion to approve the map amendments, not including the overlay. That was
All
the
right.
motion.
Okay, that's true.
Correct.
We
Got
sure about
lost
it?
in the shuffle.
I
Thank you.
second that motion.
Okay, we have a second on the motion. Any further discussion?
Now, that doesn't include the floor area ratio for the self-storage, does it? No. Okay.
It includes
No.
all the maps amendments, not including the overlay. That was his motion, and it was seconded by Mr. Otero.
Sorry, before we continue with the voting, so you are okay with turning into a minor collector instead of a rural collector?
It's the same.
It's the same.
The rural collector is under the minor collector.
No, that's the lower one, right? The rural collector is the lower.
The the rural collector
same.
is like the lowest category. But
Right.
the reason I didn't put it in there, like I said before, was that if you are a rural collector, you're not eligible for federal financing of any road projects.
I understand that. I'm just making sure. This is the lowest one, so we're going to
No,
have.
it's the middle one.
rural, correct. This
We
is
are
higher
reducing
than
it
the rural.
one, but we also are agreeing to call it the Parkway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're kind of interchanged, but
Yeah.
yes.
It's kind of like, the main thing is the minor, and then little a is the rural parkway that we're.
And the funds would be used exactly for what?
Well, whatever, whatever road improvements are proposed on Okeechobee and that are eligible for federal grants or federal financing. I mean, I don't have a specific list, but that prevents us from applying for federal funds in the future.
Do we need those federal funds?
That's a capacity issue. You have
I
to
made a
think,
joke. I
you
mean,
really
I'm
have
asking a
to
question.
separate the process from the specific design or outcomes. You want capacity to do things. That doesn't mean that you're going to prescribe how they're done. So yes, we might want federal funded grants in the future, but we couldn't tell you today why we'd want them or what they're going to
Depending
do.
on the vision we
It
have,
depends
how
on
much
what it
money we're
ends
gonna
up.
need.
If you have a project that the town wants to do and it's eligible for federal monies to do it, then you would want that capacity. It doesn't mean you have to do it or you're restricting the town to doing that. It's just an added option in your toolbox.
Okay, so any more discussion on this? We want a roll call vote or just a show of hands?
You can show of hands. No one has hands.
All in favor, signify by raising your hand. Okay,
With a delay on the overlay.
with
Well,
a
we're not
delay-
there yet.
Yeah, we're not there yet. Okay, so I'd say it's
Opposed?
4-1.
Did you vote
I voted
opposed?
against, yeah.
Okay, you didn't raise your hand, or I didn't see
No,
it.
that's
So
why, oh, sorry.
All right, those opposed, same sign. Okay, 4-1.
4-1 vote on that. Thank you.
Now let's have a motion on the, on what the process is going to be on the overlay.
Do you want to?
The motion?
I guess I can make the motion if I understand your point of view is that, that we make the motion is that we make a recommendation to council that they hold off on the overlay until we have,
Go back. I'm sorry, sir. Repeat your motion.
my motion is that we make a recommendation to council that they hold off on implementing an overlay at the moment. I'm kind of spitballing this here. that
We need more recommendations. We
we
need more
need more
recommendations from the
time,
council
more
and from the neighbors.
Community input.
So we're not having another meeting about this overlay.
We are
period.
gonna.
But
have
wait,
another-
try to craft the motion before you start discussing it. I believe you're suggesting, if I may help, to make a recommendation to council to delay the first reading on the overlay components until more public input and meetings occur to discuss
Yeah, that's what I said.
those meetings.
That's what I heard.
Oh, you're brilliant.
Yes.
That's it.
Sorry.
Second that
Okay,
motion.
and that's been seconded by Gil and Neil. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by raising your right hand. And it looks like this passes unanimously. Okay.
Okay, so since I'm on a roll, why don't we get rid of the Southern Boulevard? I make a motion to adopt the recommendations with, as far as the Southern Boulevard text amendments, with the exception of adding policy 1.26.
Yeah.
In line with what you were thinking. So
So we're moving it from the comp plan amendment.
we're agreeing with, or we're recommending no, wait, no, sorry, actually.
So we're only approving policy 1 to 5 or not?
No, that's on Okeechobee.
Page 4,
No, 1, 2,
No,
5
Southern.
is
Page 4.
Southern Boulevard.
Southern Boulevard.
Page 5.
4,
4. Oh, sorry.
4C. There's 3 dots.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I was looking for 1 through 5 because I thought the 1 through 5 was on page 2 through 3. Or it was somewhere earlier, because it says amend table 1-8 to increase the intensity maximum floor area ratio for the commercial low use, land use category. So I'm not seeing the 1 through 5, so that's, I guess, what's tripping me up.
The 125, it's.
Oh, 1, 2, 5, I think it's
yeah.
1 through
No,
5.
one-
I'm
one,
sorry,
two,
1,
five.
2, 5 is
Yeah.
the one, yes. Sorry.
I'm good with that.
Did you get a motion out of that?
No.
Oh,
But it wasn't, I thought your problem was the next one, 1, 2, 6.
Oh, yeah, 126. I think there's a whole confusion here.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's why I wanted to start
yeah,
over.
okay, so
table.
126 is the one that we want removed from the comp plan.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the first one, amend table.
What do you
1.
mean by remove? It says here, add policy,
Yeah, remove the policy.
but it's already there?
No.
No,
that's
these are-
the
We're not-
Oh, so we're removing it from
recommending
this,
Yeah,
not from the comp plan. Okay. gotcha.
Amendment, yeah.
Gotcha. What about amend to table 1 to 8?
Yeah, that's, so where is table?
I think it's
Which is,
13.
well, I guess it's like, yeah, it's policy 126. So
or-
the only policy here would be 125 to prohibit the following uses: additional big box, gas station, vehicle, car dealer. That,
Well, it looks like there's 2 pages of it, huh?
What is the ULDC, is the FAR and ULDC 1.5 right now? Is that why we're amending it, or are we just amending? We're just amending it so that way we're increasing for just overall density of FAR.
In the CL district, we're increasing it from 0.1 to 0.15.
yeah, which
Which
we discussed, we didn't want to do that, right?
that was for to allow above
not-
1.5.
Yeah.
That's only on Southern Boulevard.
Southern Boulevard, yeah.
Mhm. I mean, it's a 5% increase overall for any commercial. That's, I mean, a whole lot. It can be a lot, I understand, but it's,
Depends on.
yeah.
Well, self-storages are fairly low impact. I mean, it's not like people. would
I'm
drive
not,
in
I'm
and-
fine with it.
I'm fine
fine
with,
with the increase.
1.2.6 as well.
Okay,
That's
so,
not saying that's saying above 0.15. So it's just saying once they meet all these, the setbacks, they can have that empty space regardless of how big it is. So it could be 30.3.
Okay, so let's see, what page are we on right
so I
now?
guess let me amend my motion if I may.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yes, under this it could. It could theoretically get that high as long as you can meet all of the other land development regulations.
Yeah, if you have 50 acres and you meet everything else, and then whatever's left in the middle, that could be a 10-acre building.
So should it say increase 2.15?
There could be,
Well-
if there was a unity of time.
Well, no, that policy is talking about just about self-storage. I think that we do need to have some ceiling, in
But
it,
you said it,
which there's not in there now.
you said maybe increased above 0.15. I thought you said that it was 2.15. You were saying up from 10%. I thought that's what you just said. You said 10% wasn't enough, so we wanted to do
I think,
1.15.
no, we were talking about the commercial low in general. So this is apply, so the 0.15 in general is going to apply to all the new development
Mhm.
in the CL.
Mm.
And for a self-storage can go above.
0.15 is the standard FAR in the CL district, with the exception of
Of self-storage.
self-storage,
Got it.
which can go above if you follow this procedure.
Right.
But they still have to go through an approval process and they
Do
would
they?
have to have the plan provided. They can't, this doesn't just give them a green light. It's saying that
No.
they have the ability to request
Yep.
to go above 1.5, not
Yep.
you can go for it and there's no ceiling. There's still
That's right.
controls intact, I believe.
But they could still do that, but they would just require them to pay for the comp plan amendment, them to initiate
Well,
that process themselves.
No, there wouldn't be a
Well,
compromise.
that would be a site plan, site proposal.
I'm saying if we didn't approve this,
Oh.
and if they want to go above the 0.15,
Yeah, that's true. If this doesn't happen, then they would have to apply to make an amendment to the ULDC to allow that to happen. Which is what this.
I'm sorry, to the ULDC or the comp plan? Because you said comp plan, you said ULDC.
Well, the ULDC would be the one to then make the recommendation to change the comp plan. The comp plan would then have to be changed in the
Yeah.
same format that we're doing it. We're just doing it.
If you think of the comp plan as the policies and the controlling parameters and the ULDC as the rules and regulations of how you get there.
I understand, it's just that you both said, like, Ryan? No, Neil, sorry. Neil and Jim said, use different language, that's all. I know the differences, but, okay.
Okay.
Okay, can we take a vote?
There's no.
What's the motion?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's that, all right, I'm going to reformat my motion and say, my motion is that we adopt Section C Southern Boulevard text amendments as currently written. That's my
Adopt
motion, and
section.
anyone's free to vote it down and make their own motion.
Adopt section C.
Can you repeat the motion, please?
Okay, on page 4 of staff's recommendation, Southern Boulevard text amendments, it's asking that we amend table 1-A, add policy 1.25, add policy 1.26. So my motion is that we make the recommendation to council that we agree with this recommendation.
Okay.
Can I make one suggestion? Add that policy 2.2.5, which
2.2.5.
is on page 14 of the staff report.
That's that E road.
Oh, yeah, I was going to actually just do that under a separate motion,
Oh,
but that's
okay.
fine. We can add that into it.
So you agree, your motion is agreeing to the extension?
Yes.
Okay.
And to attachment E.
Yeah.
2.2.5, that's all is good stuff to have in there.
Yep, I 100% agree. I was just going to do that as a separate motion.
Yeah.
Okay, so Mr. Ford, your motion is to make recommendation to the council.
Microphone or mask?
Oh,
Either or both.
apologize. Your motion is to make recommendation to the council that they accept amend table 1 and 8 policy, add policy 1.25, add policy 1.26, and then add policy 2.25.
Correct.
Okay. He needs a who said?
I'll second.
Second from Matthew. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, raise your right hands. And it passes 4-1.
4-1.
Who voted? no?
Mr.
Oh, sorry.
O'Neill.
Mr. O'Neill, having lost his right arm.
Okay.
All right, are we,
Can I remove my yes? I'm sorry. I just got confused with the yes or no. I'm having problems. It's late.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, that was my bad.
okay, is there,
We done?
is there a motion to adjourn? We done?
For the overlay? You mean to set a date for the overlay?
or should we have
Yeah, I'll bring it.
Yeah.
Unless you want to have a special meeting, which I don't.
I recommend you don't try to set a date on that tonight just because of the logistics of the queued up meetings as well as the COVID and the other meetings already.
There
in
has
the-
to be an announcement in advance and get the public input and all that kind of good
Yeah,
stuff.
there's a lot of process that will go into setting that meeting for public input, certainly.
Oh, I'm sorry, but what about like the mailing that I proposed and, doing a survey online? Do we have to go to the council for them to direct you to do that, or can we do something about it?
It's all part of the package of logistics and issues that has to be worked out in order to,
Make a motion for what you're talking about and we'll see how it goes.
yeah.
Okay, I make an a motion to send a mailer to every household in town, informing about a survey in order to realize what people want or don't want about the overlay. You can probably put it in better words than I can, but. You help me?
So let me try to clarify. Your motion is to recommend to the town council to direct a mailer to all the registered properties in the town to inform them of a survey and a public
Online.
meeting process on the overlay,
Survey online. I wanna make
survey
sure.
online, to participate in public input for the overlay process,
Yes.
roughly speaking.
Is there a
Is that-
second? Motion fails for no second.
You don't want
Moving
people's
on.
input?
I thought-
Well, input happens because of, not to coin a popular bumper sticker, but it happens because you have to inform the public when you're doing public meetings and you're queuing things up. The specifics of doing the mailer or how we do that would be worked out with the council. So I would certainly recommend you talk to your council members that, that put you here and just give them that input.
Yeah, because
For
we're
lack
already
of a
recommending to
specific action.
council that we want the public's input, and we're gonna, I think, just be silent, let them figure out how they want to do that, but then we're gonna come back and have another meeting to discuss this after, so.
Well, I mean, my motion was just a recommendation for the council.
Right.
If nobody, like, it can be brought to them
Right.
at the meeting, instead of me talking to each of them separately. being
No,
lazy.
but you can also submit that directly to council. We're just, I guess, the board, the committee is saying, we're not going to make that recommendation
Gotcha.
collectively.
Okay.
All right,
Motion to dismiss.
are we ready to adjourn? Meeting's adjourned.